Imagine cruising down an empty stretch of classic American highway. Willie Nelson softly crackling from the radio, when suddenly headlights blaze, engines roar, and ruthless biker outlaws surround your rig. What would you do? This heart-pounding story introduces Mia, a tough-as-nails female trucker who looks like she belongs at a Sunday cookout rather than a showdown. But these bikers just made the biggest mistake of their lives because Mia is hiding a secret past. She's a retired Delta Force operative with elite combat skills sharpened in the toughest military missions. Folks, this isn't just another highway skirmish. It's a classic American battle between good and evil. Courage and tyranny echoing heroes from John Wayne to Clint Eastwood. Can Mia single-handedly defeat a ruthless gang determined to control the heartland highways? To find out how this high-octane standoff unfolds, you'll need to hear the whole story. Every twist, every firefight, every jaw-dropping revelation. Subscribe to our channel. Join us for this unforgettable journey. And buckle up, because the fight for justice and freedom on the open road is about to begin. A bluish dawn light crept over the edges of the high desert, revealing a long, winding highway that sliced through the middle of nowhere. Shadows stretched in the early glow, clinging to rugged outcroppings and scraggly plants. The world seemed infinitely vast here, haunted by a quiet that could simultaneously comfort and intimidate. For most travelers, this expanse was a place to pass through rather than linger in. Just another lonely stretch of road on the way to a more populated destination. On the margins of this desolation stood a truck stop known as Buckaroo's Last Stand. The name was half joke, half tribute to the area's cowboy legacy. It wasn't much more than a battered diner, a convenience store with gas pumps out front, and a small garage for basic repairs. Yet, to the local ranchers, truckers, and the occasional tourist who strayed off the main interstate, this humble stop was an oasis. The owner, an aging widow named Marge Fletcher, prided herself on selling the best homemade pies for miles and offering warm coffee at all hours. As the sun inched higher, a massive 18-wheeler rumbled into view. At first glance, it seemed like the typical rig that frequented these roads, dusty with the name of some distribution company stenciled on its doors. But behind the wheel sat Marion Mia Brooks, a woman in her mid-30s whose unassuming demeanor belied the complexity of her past. She had sharp green eyes that surveyed her surroundings with precision, honed by training she never spoke of. Her layered brunette hair, pinned in a low bun, peeked out from beneath a worn baseball cap. There was nothing overtly remarkable about her, just another female trucker. A rarity, perhaps, but not unheard of. Mia maneuvered the truck expertly into one of the wide parking spaces near the diner. With practiced efficiency, she shut down the engine. A gentle sigh left her lips. She was tired. She had been driving for 14 hours straight and needed a break badly. Rubbing the stiffness out of her shoulders, she jumped down from the cab, revealing an athletic frame hidden beneath loose, fitting jeans and a faded t-shirt. She scanned the truck stop in a single swift motion. The place looked quiet, almost too quiet. Still, nothing triggered her internal alarm bells yet. Old habits from her earlier life might have made her watchful, but she was here for simple reasons: rest, food, and a refuel. As she walked toward the diner, Mia caught her reflection in the window. She sometimes wondered if anyone from her past life would even recognize her now. The darkness etched into her eyes by years of clandestine missions overseas had faded a bit, replaced by the dusty stoicism of the open road. Mia had found a kind of fragile peace on highways like this one. In another hour, she'd be back behind the wheel, cruising further west with precious cargo in her trailer, hopefully in a routine free of complications. Unbeknownst to her, though, trouble was brewing elsewhere. A small biker gang had recently taken an interest in this route. Soon, that trouble would become very real, and Mia's quiet morning would become anything but. Inside Buckaroo's last stand, the first thing that greeted Mia was the smell of frying bacon mingled with fresh coffee. A neon clock above the counter read 6:10 a.m. There were only a few patrons scattered around the booths. A rancher with a weathered face nursed a mug of coffee. A young couple on a cross-country road trip were sharing a plate of eggs, whispering conspiratorially about their next destination. And in a far corner, a lone figure in a denim jacket flicked through a newspaper, though his eyes seemed more interested in the front door than any article. Mia slid onto a stool at the counter. The waitress, an energetic woman in her late 20s named Carla, hustled over with a pot of coffee. "Morning, sugar. What can I get for you?" Carla asked, pouring steaming liquid into a chipped mug. Mia offered a polite smile. "Eggs sunny side and up. Wheat toast and bacon." "Thanks. Coming right up," Carla said, giving Mia a wink before leaving to hang up the order in the kitchen. Mia took a moment to relax. She sipped her coffee, letting its warmth chase away some of the exhaustion. The truck stop might have been shabby around the edges, but it held a comforting charm. Posters for local rodeos were pinned to the walls, along with faded photographs of cowboys roping wild mustangs. A radio behind the counter played low country music. Outside the window, a few semis were lined up in the lot, silent giants waiting for their drivers to resume the long haul. Her gaze drifted over to the man in the denim jacket. He caught her glance and smiled in a way that hinted at curiosity. Mia responded with a slight nod. Over the years, she'd learned to handle small talk or ignore it altogether, depending on the vibe. She hoped he was just a harmless local or another traveler. After all, not everyone who exchanged glances was a threat. Still, caution was a reflex she never fully let go of. The door to the kitchen swung open, and Marge Fletcher emerged carrying a plate loaded with Mia's breakfast. Tall and big bone with silver hair tied in a bun. Marge had an air of someone who'd seen it all, but still approached life with a warm heart. She placed the food in front of Mia. "Eat up, dear. You look like you've been running on fumes," Marge said kindly. "Thank you. Smells delicious," Mia replied. Within minutes, she was cutting into the sunny side-up eggs. She was halfway through her meal when she felt it. A slight shift in the diner's atmosphere. The door opened again, admitting two men who wore leather vests with a patch reading Steel Reapers. They were broad-shouldered and sported tattoos that snaked up their forearms. Their expressions were hard, scanning the room as if assessing it for potential. A hush fell over the diner people, instinctively lowering their voices. Mia didn't move, but her senses went into high gear. A quiet alarm sounded in her mind, recalling similar sightings from her past. The men made no immediate threats. They simply took a booth, demanded coffee, and stared around with a predatory confidence. Mia continued eating, as if uninterested, all the while mapping their positions and noting their body language. If there was one thing she'd learned in Delta Force, it was how to remain inconspicuous while sizing up potential trouble. Carla approached the two newcomers with a forced smile. "Morning, fellas. Coffee." One of the men, a tall brute with a shaved head, grunted. "Sure, and keep it coming," he said in a tone that was more of a command than a request. His partner, sporting a black bandana and a thick beard, leaned back against the booth, eyes roaming across every occupant in the diner. Mia's posture remained relaxed, but her mind churned. The patches on their vests were enough to identify them as members of a local outlaw biker group rumored to have expanded their territory in recent months. She'd overheard talk at other truck stops about these Steel Reapers. Some said they were involved in robberies, targeting truckers hauling valuable cargo. Others mentioned extortion and intimidation of small businesses. So far, law enforcement had been unable or unwilling to clamp down on them. Perhaps the group was too elusive, or perhaps local cops were too underfunded to confront them directly. The air felt charged like static before a storm. Mia noticed the rancher across the diner shift uneasily gripping his coffee cup with tense knuckles. The young couple had grown silent eyes darting toward the men in the vests. Even the guy in the denim jacket lowered his newspaper, glancing at the bikers wearily. Marge pretended to be busy wiping the counter, but the line of her mouth was tight with concern. Despite the tension, the bikers made no direct move. The shaved-head man tapped his fingers on the table while his bearded companion glanced out the window as if expecting more arrivals. Mia forced herself to remain calm, continuing her meal at a measured pace. Drawing attention to herself was the last thing she wanted. If a confrontation was coming, she didn't intend to be the one to start it. Eventually, Carla returned with 2 mugs of coffee. She placed them on the table. "Anything else you'd like?" The bearded man shrugged. "Maybe some bacon." He gave her a look that made Carla quickly avert her eyes. "And, do you happen to have a manager or owner around? We'd like to have a word." Carla hesitated, glancing toward Marge. The older woman lifted her chin slightly and stepped forward, her apron strings dangling at her sides. "I'm the owner," she said, voice steady. "What can I do for you boys?" In that moment, Mia watched as the conversation teetered on a dangerous edge. She noticed the shaved-head biker stance stiffen like a snake coiling just before striking. The bearded man leaned in. "We heard this place might be up for sale," he said, feinting casual interest. "Figure we might want to expand our business." "This diner and truck stop aren't on the market," Marge answered firmly. "I built it up with my late husband, and I'm not about to hand it over." A sly grin twisted the biker's lips. "You might want to reconsider that. We're prepared to make a very compelling offer if you catch my drift." His tone dripped with barely veiled menace. Marge held her ground. "No thanks," Shaved Head snorted. "All right, suit yourself. But I'd think twice if I were you. Times can get rough out here," he added ominously. Mia's jaw tensed as she pretended to remain engrossed in her plate. She recognized extortion when she heard it. Her mind flashed to how these encounters often escalated. She clenched her fork, reminding herself that her mission these days was to stay under the radar. Yet, a familiar itch began under her skin, one that craved direct action when faced with bullies. Once their point had been made, the bikers settled into an uncanny calm, sipping their coffee as if nothing had happened. Nobody else in the diner dared speak. It was as if the 2 men had cast a dark paw over the place, and the regulars seemed too uneasy to carry on their usual chatter. Mia decided she better settle up. She signaled to Carlo for the check, though she kept her peripheral vision locked on the pair at the booth. The shaved-head biker occasionally flicked his gaze around, but mostly he and his partner kept a steady conversation in low tones. Mia tried to make out a few words. Something about shipments, new pipeline, and meeting the boss. That set off quiet alarms in her mind. This wasn't just random intimidation for a quick score. The Steel Reapers likely had strategic interest in controlling businesses along this route. A remote truck stop could be valuable for laundering or distributing illegal goods. Carla slid the bill across the counter, her hand trembling slightly. Mia reached for her wallet. "You okay?" she asked under her breath. Carla mustered a brave smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. Happens sometimes. They roll and scare folks, then leave, but it's never felt this serious." Mia nodded. "They're getting bolder," she said simply. She left a generous tip, hoping it might offset some of Carla's jitters. As Mia rose from the stool, Marge caught her eye. The owner was holding a pot of coffee, her face set in an expression of guarded courage. Mia inclined her head, a subtle sign of respect, appreciation for a woman who refused to be bullied. She couldn't linger, though. She had a load to deliver in time, was money. More than that, she sensed that tangling with these men right now could complicate her carefully curated anonymity. In the end, she was just a truck driver passing through. Right, the bell over the diner's door jingled as she stepped outside into the brightening day. She breathed in the desert air, tinted with the scent of gasoline and dust. Instead of being rejuvenating, it felt heavy with unspoken tension. Part of her wanted to linger to see if Marge needed more help than just a sympathetic nod. Another part, born from years of special operations, warned her not to get involved unless it was absolutely necessary. She had left that life behind for a reason. She walked back to her rig, the massive vehicle that had become her sanctuary on wheels. Opening the door, she climbed inside and settled into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life after a few seconds, vibrating through her. For a moment, she just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes scanning the rear-view mirror. Through it, she saw the diner door swing open, the two bikers stepping out. They exchanged a few words on the sidewalk before straddling their Harley eyes. With thunderous engines, they took off toward the highway in the same direction Mia was headed. She felt a knot in her stomach. Crossing paths with them might be inevitable on the open road. Shaking her head, she reminded herself that her priority was to deliver her cargo. This was not her fight, at least not yet. Mia shifted her truck into a gear, gently guiding it out of the parking lot and onto the deserted highway. Despite the tense encounter, the open road provided a momentary sense of relief. Telephone poles zippoed by rhythmically, each one a slender sentinel witnessing her journey. Towering mesas dotted the landscape, their red and brown hues illuminated by a steadily rising sun. It was a tableau of stark beauty that Mia had come to love during her long-haul drives. Her thoughts, however, remained back at Buckaroo's last stand. She replayed the bikers' conversation in her mind, the way they'd looked at Marge, how they had essentially threatened her livelihood. It grated at Mia's conscience, but she knew better than to impulsively intervene. She was no longer under any orders to protect civilians, and she had carefully dismantled that identity, complete with forging a new history, relocating multiple times, and adopting a low-key life behind the wheel of a freight truck. Acting on a vigilante urge could blow her cover. Even the quietest towns had eyes and ears. Still, she couldn't entirely shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time she'd see them. The Steel Reapers weren't known for idle threats. In her previous line of work, she had encountered enough criminal syndicates to recognize patterns. They usually scouted a location, tested boundaries, and then returned with greater force to claim what they wanted. And if Buckaroo's last stand was in their crosshairs, Marge and her staff could be in real danger soon. In an attempt to distract herself, Mia shifted focus back to her current job. She was hauling a trailer filled with medical supplies bound for a distribution center several hundred miles away. While not as glamorous or as lucrative as some cargo, it was consistent work that paid decently. More importantly, it kept her moving, granting her the freedom to slip in and out of towns without forming attachments. The day wore on as she navigated the emptier stretches of desert highway. Occasionally, she'd pass a small cluster of houses or a dilapidated billboard advertising a ghost town tourist trap. Hours drifted by, marked by the changing angle of the sun in the swirl of dust devils across the plains. She made a single pit stop to top off her fuel tank at a larger station, where board attendants exchanged half-hearted greetings. By late afternoon, her eyes itched with fatigue. She decided to pull over at a rest area for a quick break. Parking her rig alongside a row of silent trucks, she climbed down to stretch her legs. The area was nothing more than a dusty lot, with a couple of vending machines and some picnic tables under a metal awning. A few drivers milled about smoking or checking their tires. Mia nodded politely to an older driver who returned the gesture before walking off. She leaned against her truck's side, sipping water. A sense of disc edged its way back into her thoughts. She kept imagining those bikers from the morning, hearing their engines roar. Was it paranoia, or a gut feeling that they might reappear? Her instincts had rarely led her astray in the past. At the same time, her rational mind argued that the Steel Reapers likely had more pressing business than chasing down a random trucker who was minding her own. Shaking off the tension, she climbed back into her cab. She had miles to go before reaching the next town large enough to have decent lodging, and she was determined to clock enough hours to make her delivery deadline. The rig's engine started with a rumble, and Mia pulled onto the highway once more, letting the desert horizon swallow her up. She told herself she was simply another speck, moving across the endless American landscape. Yet, a small voice inside reminded her that fate had a way of tracking people down, no matter how far they ran. Twilight was descending by the time Mia neared a small town named Sunfall Creek, a modest settlement of maybe 2,000 residents. It was the closest place with a motel and a halfway decent diner, according to her trucking app. Beyond that, there wasn't much reason to stop here except to catch some sleep. Yet, as she guided her 18-wheeler through the town's main drag, she noted an unusual bustle for a place this small. A few police cruisers were parked outside the lone local bar, lights flashing, but sirens silent. Curiosity tugged at her. She slowed down, scanning the scene. A cluster of onlookers hovered near the bar's entrance. Some peered inside with anxious expressions. Others murmured to each other, their voices lost beneath the growl of Mia's diesel engine. She decided it was none of her business. Still, she couldn't help but wonder if the disturbance had anything to do with the Steel Reapers. The sense of foreboding from earlier in the day lingered like a shadow. She maneuvered her truck toward the outskirts of Sunfall Creek, where a neon sign proclaimed the Western Haven Motel. The structure behind the sign was a single-story row of rooms in dire need of fresh paint. Next to it, a diner called Sagebrush Eats shared the dusty parking lot. Mia found a wide spot near the back where she could park her rig. After gathering a small duffel bag from the cab, she locked up and walked to the motel's front office. Inside, a bored-looking teenager sat behind the reception counter, scrolling through his phone. He barely glanced at Mia as she approached. "Need a room?" he asked monotone. "Yes, please," Mia replied politely. "Just for the night." He tapped a few keys on an old computer. "Room 7 is available. $55 plus tax." Mia handed over her ID and cash. She noticed the kid's eyes flick momentarily to her name. He didn't comment, though. He gave her a receipt and a key, then returned to his phone with practiced indifference. Room 7 was near the end of the building, far from the road. Mia appreciated the relative privacy. She unlocked the door and stepped into a modest space that smelled faintly of old carpet cleaner. The bed was covered in a faded floral comforter, a small TV perched on a dresser, and a single window faced the lot. It wasn't glamorous, but it would do. After dropping off her duffel, she checked the locks on the door and window, an old habit that died hard. The day's tension weighed on her. A warm shower sounded like heaven, but her growling stomach insisted she eat first, so she decided to head to the diner next door, hoping for a quiet meal before turning in. As she left her room, her ears picked up a distant rumble. Motorcycles, perhaps. She paused, scanning the darkening horizon. It could have been any biker passing through. Still, she felt that subtle prickling at the base of her spine, the same one she used to get on covert missions when something was about to break bad. Exhaling slowly, she continued on to Sagebrush Eats, determined to ignore the phantom echoes of her old life. Inside Sagebrush Eats, the lighting was warm, casting a honey glow over laminated menus and plastic-covered booths. A jukebox in the corner was playing a twangy country tune. Despite the cozy decor, the place was mostly empty. A middle-aged waitress with curly red hair, her name tag read Rhonda, greeted Mia with a weary smile. "Take any seat you like, hun," Rhonda offered. Mia chose a booth near the back, preferring a clear line of sight to the entrance. Old habits. She settled in, scanning the menu, though her thoughts kept drifting to the day's events. The tension at Buckaroo's last stand, the police presence in town, that sense of being trailed by phantom motorcycles. Yet so far, nothing tangible had suggested she was in immediate danger. She told herself to relax, reminding herself that not every sign was an omen. Rhonda appeared at the table. "Know what you want, or need a minute? I'll have the special steak and potatoes medium rare, and some iced tea, please." "You got it," Rhonda replied, scribbling on a notepad before disappearing back into the kitchen. Leaning back in her seat, Mia rubbed her eyes, exhaustion finally catching up. Tomorrow's plan was straightforward. Wake up early, drive the next few 100 miles, unload her cargo, and pick up another load for her return route. If all went well, she'd be back on the interstate and away from any local drama. But a small part of her wondered if she should check the local news. Maybe she should find out if the Steel Reapers had caused the disturbance at the bar. This corner of the desert wasn't a major media hub. Any trouble might not even be reported widely. Still, knowledge was power. Her phone buzzed without a low battery warning, so she decided to wait until she got back to her room to charge it and do a quick news search. A few minutes later, Rhonda returned with a steaming plate and a tall glass of tea. The steak smelled glorious, charred edges, juicy center. Exactly the hearty meal Mia craved after a long day. She thanked the waitress, who gave her a kind smile before drifting away to refill the salt and pepper shakers at an adjacent table. Mia was halfway through her meal when the diner's bell chimed. She glanced up casually, then felt her pulse quicken. Two men walked in clad in leather vests bearing the same Steel Reapers insignia she had seen that morning. They appeared younger than the first pair, but had the same hard edge to their eyes. One had long, unkempt hair. The other sported a mohawk. They scanned the diner, barely acknowledging Rhonda's attempt to greet them. Mia quickly lowered her gaze to her plate, though her senses were on high alert. She prayed they wouldn't notice her, or if they did, they'd see just another tired trucker having dinner. Her gut tightened, bracing for the possibility that trouble had found her after all. The newcomers took seats at a booth near the front, giving them an unobstructed view of the diner's entrance. Their conversation was low and tense. Mia couldn't hear individual words, but she picked up on the tone. One of them tapped his knuckles against the table in a jittery pattern, while the other kept glancing outside as though expecting more associates or looking out for potential threats. Rhonda approached to take their order, and Mia strained to catch bits of the exchange. "Coffee," the Mohawk man muttered. "Meatloaf," said the one with long hair, fidgeting with the zipper on his vest. Their eyes flicked around the diner, briefly landing on Mia before sliding elsewhere. They didn't seem to recognize her, or if they did, they gave no indication. Mia ate slowly, each bite feeling heavier than the last. If these men were part of the same group she encountered earlier, it meant the Steel Reapers were more active in this region than she'd hoped. She forced herself to remain calm, carefully considering her options. Could she simply finish her meal pay and leave without incident? Most likely. They didn't have any clear reason to confront a lone woman trucker who wasn't interfering in their business. Yet her instincts remained on edge. Years of training had tuned her reflexes, warning her that when multiple members of a criminal outfit show up in different locations, it might be a coordinated effort. Possibly they were scoping out new targets or reinforcing their presence in the area, the bar, the truck stop. Now this diner coincidence felt unlikely. She decided the safest course was to remain inconspicuous. Finishing off the last of her potatoes, she waited for an opportune moment to settle her bill. Rhonda was busy pouring coffee for the bikers, so Mia seized the chance to slip to the counter. She laid down enough cash to cover her tab, plus a tip. Before leaving, she caught Rhonda's eye and mouthed a quick thank you. Rhonda nodded her brow, furrowing a bit as she looked over at the bikers. The tension was palpable. Mia exited the diner with measured steps, her back prickling as if expecting an attack. But no footsteps followed her, and the door didn't swing open behind her. The evening air felt cooler now, a slight breeze rustling tumbleweeds across the parking lot. Streetlights buzzed overhead, casting pools of yellow light onto cracked asphalt. She headed straight to her motel room, scanning the area for any sign of more bikers or suspicious vehicles. It appeared quiet, just a couple of cars and another truck parked at the far end. Reaching her door, she unlocked it swiftly and slipped inside, locking both the doorknob and the deadbolt. She set the chain in place for good measure. Inside, her heart still pounded a little too fast. She dropped onto the edge of the bed, exhaling a shaky breath. Perhaps she was overreacting, jumping at shadows. But she couldn't deny her instincts. Something told her she'd stepped into a hornet's nest. The Steel Reapers had a plan for this stretch of highway, and it might directly impact local truckers and businesses, maybe even her, if she got in their way. For now, though, there was little she could do. She plugged in her phone, pulled out a laptop from her duffel, and resolved to check local news. Maybe there'd be a hint of what was unfolding, and maybe she could still find a way to pass through unnoticed before the situation escalated any further. The motel's Wi-Fi was painfully slow, but eventually Mia accessed a local news site. Headlines scrolled by. Town Council approves new water initiative. Local high school sports team advances, and buried a few pages in a small note. Altercation at Ruhr's bar under investigation. She clicked on the link. The article was short, stating that police responded to a fight allegedly instigated by unknown individuals in biker attire. Witnesses described them as members of a gang, but were too fearful to provide more details. No arrests were made. Mia frowned. It had to be the Steel Reapers. The minor scuffle might only be an appetizer to a larger course of havoc, if the gang wanted to make Sunfall Creek one of their strongholds. She glanced at her phone, which had gained enough charge to power on. No missed calls or urgent texts. No reason for her to stay other than an unshakable feeling that she was leaving a town on the brink of real trouble. Before turning in, she flipped through her mental Rolodex of old contacts. Ex-military buddies, a few under-the-radar law enforcement acquaintances. She had severed most ties after quietly exiting Delta Force, but a handful of them had insisted on staying in touch. Would it be worth it to give one of them a heads up? The question swirled in her mind as she readied for bed. She decided against it for now. Mia doubted local authorities would welcome an outsider stirring the pot. Besides, she had no concrete evidence of impending violence, just a strong hunch. Her clock read nearly 11 p.m., and the day's weariness hit her full force. After a final check of the locks, she laid down on the stiff motel mattress, drifting into a restless sleep, haunted by half-formed nightmares of dusty roads and roaring engines. Night yielded to a pale dawn. Mia awoke before her phone's alarm, a habit ingrained from too many pre-dawn military operations. She quickly got dressed, pulled her hair into a neat bun, and gathered her belongings. Best to hit the road early and avoid any chance encounters with the Steel Reapers. She had enough diesel to reach her delivery point, so she planned to skip any stops until she was well past Sunfall Creek. Stepping out into the morning chill, she saw her breath fog up in the crisp air. The sky was a gentle grayish pink, promising clear weather. A stray cat prowled near the dumpster behind the diner, and not much else stirred. Mia walked to her rig, performed a quick inspection of the tires and trailer hitch, then climbed into the driver's seat. The key turned, and the engine groaned to life. She navigated the nearly empty roads through town. The bar from last night was shuttered, looking deceptively peaceful in the early light. Glancing around, she saw no sign of motorcycles. Maybe they'd all moved on. Mia allowed herself a small sigh of relief, at least temporarily. She pressed on the accelerator, merging onto the main highway headed north, leaving Sunfall Creek in her rear-view mirror. If luck was on her side, the day would pass without incident. But in her gut, she sensed that her path and the Steel Reaper's ambitions were on a collision course, one she might not be able to avoid forever. The first 100 miles flew by in a blur of asphalt and desert scenery. Mia kept the radio off, preferring silence to think. Her thoughts returned to the diner at Buckaroo's last stand, to Margie's determined face. She recalled the fleeting expression of fear on Carlo's features. Then she pictured the two bikers who had sidled in, exuding intimidation. She wondered if they would be back to push Marge harder. The notion tightened her chest. She had left that life behind, defending strangers from threats, risking her own safety to keep others out of harm's way. When she enlisted in the Army at 19, she'd been eager to serve to test her limits. She never imagined it would lead to Delta Force, to clandestine missions in places no one talked about openly. She also never guessed how many lines she'd have to cross, how many nightmares would follow. By the time she had the chance to leave, her soul felt frayed, so she cut ties, filed for a discharge under special circumstances, and disappeared into the wide anonymity of the trucking world. The open road was supposed to be her therapy, her new normal, a place where she could blend in as just another driver in a long line of them crossing the country every day. And yet, that old sense of duty gnawed at her. Lives were about to be upended by a ruthless biker gang, and she might be one of the few people capable of stepping in effectively. However, that also meant drawing attention to herself. She wasn't naive. If she used the full extent of her training, people would ask questions. Authorities, criminals, both had ways of prying into backgrounds. Could she really risk exposing her hidden identity? Her internal debate raged on, drowning out the drone of the engine. Just as she considered pulling over for a coffee break to clear her head, she spotted something up ahead. A small cluster of vehicles on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking. Two sedans and one pickup truck pulled to the gravel shoulder. As Maya got closer, she noticed a person standing in the middle of the lane, frantically waiting for her to stop. She eased down on the brakes, caution overriding curiosity. It wasn't unheard of for stranded motorists to flag down truckers for help, but it also wasn't unheard of for criminals to stage breakdowns as ambushes. Mia quickly scanned the environment. No motorcycles in sight, no immediate sign of a setup. Still, her heart kicked up a notch. Pulling off to the shoulder, she rolled down her window. The frantic figure, a middle-aged man with disheveled hair, hurried up to the cab. "Please, miss, we need help. My wife? She's in labor, and we can't get the car started." Mia glanced at the two cars. Another woman was leaning against one sedan, her face contorted in pain. A younger couple stood nearby, holding phones, presumably with no signal. This part of the desert was notorious for spotty coverage. Deciding this was genuine, Mia flipped on her hazard lights and hopped down. The sun bore down on her shoulders as she crossed the gravel. "How far along is she?" Mia asked, surprising herself with the calm in her own voice. "She's due any day now," the man said, panic coloring his tone. "She's having contractions. They're close together." Mia's mind snapped into problem-solving mode. She might be ex-military, but she wasn't exactly a medic. Still, she had basic first aid training and had done field triage under worse conditions. If paramedics couldn't get here in time, she'd have to do what she could. While one of the younger bystanders tried futilely to get cell reception, Mia told the distressed husband to help his wife lie down in the back seat of the working sedan. She quickly grabbed a first aid kit from her truck, though it was far from an obstetric kit. Her mind raced with the steps she'd need to take if the baby decided to arrive before an ambulance could reach them. "Hang on, ma'am," Mia said gently as she leaned into the sedan. "The woman—" "My name's Simone." The woman, Catherine was her name, breathed in ragged gasps, sweat beating on her forehead. Mia checked her watch. Intervals between contractions seemed to be about 3 minutes. "We need to get medical help fast." The young couple standing nearby, presumably friends or relatives, managed to find a single bar of signal and called 911. Mia overheard fragments of their conversation. Mile marker 142. Emergency. Pregnant woman in labor. That was a relief. Now the question was whether an ambulance could navigate the remote roads in time. "We have an ambulance on the way," the young man relayed, sounding more relieved than confident. "They said it could be 30 minutes, maybe more." Mia nodded, swallowing a sense of dread. 30 minutes could be too long. "I've got training," she said, leaving out the specifics of how and why. "Let's keep her comfortable." She grabbed a clean blanket from the trunk, rolled it up as a makeshift pillow, and laid Catherine's head against it. "Just breathe," Mia coached. Slow, even breaths. Catherine's eyes brimmed with pain, but she followed Mia's instructions, gripping her husband's hand with a strength that made him wuss. Mia's focus was absolute. She'd been in life-threatening combat zones, but bringing a child into the world felt profoundly different. Dangerous in its own. Come away. Yet filled with hope. The minutes stretched on. The next time Mia checked, Catherine's contractions were barely 2 minutes apart. Mia considered the possibilities. If the baby crowned before the ambulance arrived, she might have to deliver it herself. No time to second-guess. She mentally reviewed the steps for an emergency roadside delivery, recalling a Delta Force buddy who had been a combat medic describing it once. Another contraction hit Catherine hard. She screamed, and her husband looked close to panic. Mia kept her voice steady. "It's going to be okay. Keep breathing. Let it happen." She shot a glance at the horizon, yearning for the sight of flashing lights. Nothing yet. Catherine gasped, face contorting with each wave of pain. Mia quickly realized the baby was coming faster than expected. She slid into the back seat, instructing the others to give her room. With gentle but firm guidance, she positioned Catherine's legs. "Catherine, listen to me. If you feel the urge to push, go ahead. I'll tell you when to stop or keep going." Time in the desert seemed to blend. Dust swirled around them. A single hawk circled overhead, indifferent to the drama below. Catherine pushed, tears streaming, and Mia steadied her. She saw the outline of a tiny head emerging. Her heart pounded, adrenaline surging in a way reminiscent of high-stakes missions. Only this time, her mission was the miracle of birth. Within minutes that felt like hours, the baby came into Mia's waiting hands, slippery and faintly blue at first breath. The rush of relief and awe was overwhelming. She quickly cleared the baby's airway, used her shirt sleeve to wipe away fluids from the tiny face, and then, like a thunderclap in a silent sky, the infant let out a shrill cry. Mia exhaled shakily, a grin spreading across her face. Despite the tension, the wail was the sweetest sound in the world right then. "It's a girl," she announced, voice trembling with emotion. The husband broke into tears, and Catherine sung with both exhaustion and joy. Mia expertly wrapped the newborn in a clean towel someone handed her. She placed the baby gently on Catherine's chest. "Skin-to-skin contact will help keep her warm," she explained in the same authoritative tone she once used to give tactical instructions. Moments later, the wail of an approaching ambulance cut through the desert air. A paramedic team arrived, quickly taking over. They commended Mia for her quick thinking and skill. As they loaded Catherine and her newborn into the ambulance, Mia felt a surge of conflicting emotions, gratitude that she could help, and a reminder of the caretaker role she used to play in an entirely different arena. The husband turned to Mia, his voice catching in his throat. "We can't thank you enough. You saved our family." Mia offered a humble nod. "I'm just glad I was here at the right time." She knew it sounded modest, but she truly meant it. The paramedics insisted on checking Mia for any signs of shock or dehydration, which she patiently allowed. After giving her a clean bill of health, they thanked her once more. Catherine, now on a stretcher, reached out to squeeze Mia's hand. "We're naming her Hope," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes, "because of people like you." With that, they closed the ambulance doors and the vehicle pulled away, leaving Mia standing in a swirl of dusty air. The group of bystanders erupted into scattered applause in a flurry of relieved chatter. One of them offered Mia a bottle of water, and she gratefully drank, realizing how parched she was. The crisis resolved. People gradually returned to their vehicles. The younger couple expressed their gratitude before driving off. The stranded sedan's engine finally coughed to life, and the family inside waved goodbye. Soon, Mia was left alone on the shoulder with her own rig. She stared at the empty stretch of highway ahead, heart still thudding from the adrenaline of delivering a baby. Sliding back into her seat, she felt the enormity of what had just happened. In her Delta Force days, she'd been trained to take lives in the most efficient manner possible. Now, ironically, she'd just helped bring a new one into the world in the middle of nowhere. The contrast was staggering. It felt like the universe was reminding her that she wasn't just a ghost, drifting from one rest stop to another. She still had a part to play in protecting and aiding others, whether she liked it or not. Starting her engine, Mia pulled back onto the road. Her timeline was shot. She'd be late for her delivery unless she made up time. But her mind was far from logistical concerns. The raw beauty of what she just experienced left her convinced that maybe, just maybe, her skills weren't meant to be buried entirely. Maybe she could still make a difference without fully diving back into the life she left behind. Yet, as the highway opened up before her, she couldn't shake the memory of those biker vests. The Steel Reapers were out there sowing fear and chaos in small towns like Sunfall Creek or even at Buckaroo's Last Stand, and people like Marge or Carla might not have the means to protect themselves. As Mia shifted gears, she wondered how long she could sit idle if she crossed paths with that gang again, knowing the capacity she possessed to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. The remainder of the drive was uneventful, as if the desert had decided to grant her a respite after the morning's drama. She arrived at the distribution center a couple of hours behind schedule. But after hearing her story, albeit a toned-down version that omitted her exact role in the delivery, the supervisors were surprisingly understanding. A healthy dose of disbelief might have tinged their reactions, but nobody questioned her integrity enough to penalize her for the delay. By late afternoon, Mia was back on the highway, hauling an empty trailer to a nearby depot where she'd pick up another load bound east. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon with red and orange streaks. She couldn't help replaying the day in her head. The tension with the bikers, the roadside birth, her inner conflict about stepping into a protective role again. Night fell quickly, and she decided to push a little further before stopping. She found a large truck stop just off the main interstate. The bright fluorescent lights were a stark contrast to the simpler, more rustic charm of Buckaroo's Last Stand. Pulling into one of the wide lanes, she parked her rig and powered down the engine ticking with a metallic echo. She headed inside the sprawling convenience store for a quick meal, opting for pre-packaged sandwiches and a bottle of juice. This truck stop was bustling with travelers of all sorts passing through. A small arcade blinked in the corner. A few truckers chatted about routes near the coffee machines. It was a world away from the lonely diner of the morning. Yet Mia couldn't shake the lingering tension in her shoulders. After paying for her items, she returned to her truck and ate in the cab. The solitude allowed her to decompress, yet it also reignited her thoughts about the Steel Reapers. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. She raised an eyebrow and opened it. "Heard you were at Buckaroo's this morning. Watch your back. They don't like witnesses." Her heart jolted. Witnesses. The text was unsigned. Could it be from Carla? Or maybe someone else at the diner who had her number from some trucking directory or receipt? Either way, the message was clear. Word was getting around that the Steel Reapers took note of everyone who'd been present during their little intimidation run, and Mia's presence certainly hadn't gone unnoticed. She quickly typed back, "Who is this?" but received no immediate reply. She tried calling this number, and it went straight to voicemail. An automated message, no name. Mia felt that old spark of vigilance flare up. The gang was thorough, it seemed. Even though she hadn't intervened, simply being there and possibly overhearing them could make her a target. Her grip tightened on the phone. She had to decide. Keep running or confront the risk head-on. Grimacing, she reminded herself that caution had kept her alive this long. Tomorrow, she'd deliver her new load and keep moving. But if the Steel Reapers came looking, they'd discover she was more than just a random trucker, and she had a feeling that day was fast approaching. Sleep did not come easily that night. Mia rested in her truck's sleeper berth, each rustle of wind or passing engine outside stirring her into half-alertness. Every time her eyes drifted shut, images flickered across her mind. The menacing bikers, the newborn's cry, the cryptic text message. By dawn, she felt drained, but she refused to let exhaustion dictate her actions. She rolled out of the sleeper and stepped onto the asphalt lot, the sky just starting to lighten in pastel shades of pink and gold. After a brisk round of stretches to loosen the tension in her muscles, she fired up the truck and got back on the road. She told herself that distance was her ally, putting miles between herself and the trouble brewing back at those rural outposts. Yet, fate has a way of circling back. Around mid-morning, Mia heard the hum of motorcycles behind her. She peered into the side mirror, spotting 3 bikes cruising at a match speed. They weren't necessarily Steel Reapers. Plenty of biking enthusiasts traversed these roads, but her pulse quickened all the same. She maintained her speed, unwilling to cause a scene by braking or accelerating wildly. The motorcycles drew closer, then split into 2 lanes, one on her left, one on her right. The third hung back. An uneasy feeling coiled in her gut. She gripped the steering wheel, eyes flicking between mirrors. Sure enough, as they passed, she caught sight of the Steel Reapers patch on the riders' backs. Her heart clenched. One of them glanced up at her cab, his face obscured by a tinted visor. She kept her expression neutral, hoping they wouldn't recognize her or her rig. For a few 10 seconds, their engines roared alongside hers. Then they sped ahead, merging seamlessly back into a single file. Mia released a slow breath. Maybe it was a coincidence, just them heading the same route, but the possibility that they were tailing her remained. She checked her mirrors constantly for the next few miles, half expecting them to slow down or block her path. Instead, they maintained a faster speed and vanished beyond the bends of the desert highway. Mia tried to let the tension bleed out of her shoulders. Perhaps they were just crossing her path, not actively hunting her. By midday, she reached her delivery point, a large warehouse complex near a minor city. The drop-off went smoothly. No sign of the bikers reappearing. She allowed herself a small, private sigh of relief. Maybe that text had been a false alarm or a misguided attempt to spook her. But even as she secured an empty trailer for the next run, her thoughts drifted to Marge, Carla, and the other folks who might not have the option of driving away. The Steel Reapers wouldn't let them off so easily. Mia's conscience nagged at her. She told herself it wasn't her battle. Yet how long could she ignore it? All she knew was that she couldn't bury her head in the sand indefinitely. The next time she rolled through that region, she vowed to at least check on Buckaroo's last stand. If the situation had escalated, she'd have a difficult choice to make. Remain incognito or step out of the shadows as the trained operative she once was. The rest of the afternoon slipped by. Mia picked up a new cargo auto parts destined for a dealership 3 states over. The route would eventually loop her back toward the region she just left, although on a different stretch of highway. She felt a quiet pull to avoid that entire area to take a longer road just for safety. Yet something in her refused to yield to fear. She was tired of running, tired of letting her past define her present. As dusk fell, she stopped at another truck stop to plan her overnight. Standing by her rigging, she gazed at a paper map pinned to a bulletin board in the driver's lounge. GPS was standard, but sometimes she liked the tactile clarity of a map. Tracing her finger along a dash line, she found an alternate route that bypassed Sunfall Creek and skirted around the edges of the territory rumored to be crawling with Steel Reapers. It would add an extra 2 hours to her journey, but possibly save her a confrontation. She wrestled with indecision. A pang of conscience told her she should at least make a discreet check on Buckaroo's last stand. If things were bad, could she really live with herself for turning a blind eye? A voice in her head argued back, "You're just one person trying to leave that life behind." Another voice countered, "You have a skill set they don't. Maybe they need your help." In the lounge, a small TV was tuned to a local news station. Mia's eyes drifted to the scrolling text beneath the anchors. Mihani Buin local diner vandalized. Suspects at large. Authorities seek assistance identifying biker gang. Her pulse kicked up. She turned the volume higher, hearing that the diner was in a rural area partially destroyed by unknown assailants who left behind symbols resembling a steel skull. Steel Reapers, no doubt. Suddenly, her mind was made up. She asked another trucker if he knew the location of the vandalized diner. He thought for a moment, then said it was a place just off Highway 17, roughly 30 km from Buckaroo's last stand. Mia felt a surge of alarm and something else. Anger. If they were already trashing one diner, how long before they moved on to Marge's? She walked back to her rig, tension thrumming in her veins. The question of should I seemed to answer itself. She had the means to check the background to do something about it if necessary. And after all, she'd brought life into this world just yesterday. It felt deeply wrong to let a group of violent thugs terrorize decent folks when she could intervene. Sure, she told herself, it might be risky. The Steel Reapers might discover who she really was. But maybe it was time she stopped hiding from the person she'd become, someone capable of extraordinary measures under pressure. In her own way, she was as dangerous as any biker gang, perhaps more so. Night swallowed the horizon as she started the engine. She keyed in coordinates for a route that would lead her back toward Buckaroo's last stand. As the truck rumbled onto the highway, her resolve solidified. She'd go there, see for herself if Marge and Carla were okay, and if she found the Steel Reapers wreaking havoc, she wouldn't stand idly by. Delta Force taught her that sometimes you're the last line of defense. The open road lay ahead, dark and mysterious, but Mia pressed forward, guided by a sense of duty. she couldn't quite suppress. Her heart pounded with a mix of trepidation and anticipation. Little did she know that by returning, she'd be stepping right into the crosshairs of a brewing battle, one that would force her to unearth every skill she'd tried so hard to bury. The moonless sky stretched over the desert like a dark cloak as Mia navigated the back roads toward Buckaroo's last stand. She had deliberately chosen less traveled highways, hoping to avoid any roving steel reapers. Despite her caution every few miles, she caught herself glancing in the mirrors, half expecting the glare of motorcycle headlights. The radio was off. She preferred silence to heighten her awareness of the road and her surroundings. Her mind flicked back to the cryptic text message warning her to watch her back. For all she knew, the sender might have been Carla or some good Samaritan, but it might also have been a ploy. Still, she couldn't ignore the sense that something was profoundly wrong in this stretch of desert. The headlines on the truck stop TV confirmed that vandalism was merely the first rumble of thunder in what might become a violent storm. Hours melted away. She skirted the edges of Sunfall Creek, the same town where she had spent a troubled night. This time she didn't plan to stop. Her goal was Buckaroo's another 40 kilometers down a rural road. With each passing mile, tension coiled tighter in her gut. She wondered how Marge and Carlo were holding up if they had faced further threats. She'd never intended to get entangled in a local turf war, but fate seemed to have other plans. Suddenly, a distant glow appeared on the horizon. Not the gentle illumination of town lights, but something harsher, brighter than any normal lamp. Mia's pulse kicked up as she recalled the sight of random fires in conflict zones overseas. It looked eerily similar. She pressed the gas pedal a bit harder, covering the distance in minutes, adrenaline already surging in anticipation of what she might find. Sure enough, as she crested a small hill, she saw flickering flames licking the night sky. It appeared to be some structure off to her left, a barn or shed, maybe fully engulfed. She slowed her truck to a crawl. A wave of dread washed over her, imagining the possibility that the Steel Reapers had struck again. Mia debated whether to intervene immediately or keep driving to avoid drawing attention. But even from a distance, she could see frantic silhouettes moving around the blaze. Someone needed help. Memories of the day before helping deliver a child under emergency circumstances tipped her decision. She flipped on her hazard lights and carefully pulled onto the shoulder, stopping the rig. For a moment, she double-checked her bag under the seat. Inside was an emergency kit, a spare phone charger, a flashlight, and hidden beneath a false bottom, her old sidearm. She hesitated, then unlatched the false bottom, removing the weapon. It felt both alien and familiar in her hand. Climbing down from the pimp, she scanned the area. A narrow dirt road led toward the burning structure. Mia didn't see any motorcycles or the telltale shapes of biker vests, but smoke and flames could obscure plenty. She tucked the pistol into her waistband at the small of her back, covering it with her jacket. With her flashlight in hand, she hurried along the dirt path, footsteps crunching on gravel. The heat grew intense as she neared the inferno, and the acrid smell of burning wood seared her lungs. When she reached the perimeter, she recognized the remains of a large barn. A couple of men and a woman struggled to douse the flames with buckets of water, their efforts almost futile. Mia rushed forward, calling out above the roar of fire. "Anyone inside?" One of the men looked up, sweat streaming down his face. "No, we got the animals out in time, but the barn's a goner," he shouted. He tossed another bucket of water onto the blaze, only to watch the flames hiss and surge again. Mia scanned the scene. The barn was an old wooden structure, likely bone dry from the desert climate. Flames licked hungrily at the support beams, sending sparks skyward. She noticed a tractor and several rolled bales of hay on the far side, potential fuel waiting to be ignited. "Keep water on that hay," she yelled. "If it catches, it'll spread faster." Although she wasn't a firefighter, basic crisis management had been hammered into her during special ops training. Her voice carried enough authority that the others instinctively followed her advice. One man pivoted, dousing the edges of the hay bales. Meanwhile, Mia noticed a distinct symbol spray painted on the barn's intact outer wall, a steel skull with a gear-like outline. It was the unmistakable emblem of the Steel Reapers. Anger ignited in her gut. This wasn't just an accident. It was arson. They were marking territory, sending a message. Nearby, a woman coughed violently, wiping soot from her eyes. Mia approached, offering a bandana from her jacket pocket for the woman to cover her mouth. "Are you folks from around here?" she asked, pitching her voice loud enough to be heard over the roar. "We own this ranch," the woman choked out. "Name's Mr. Rachel Mallister. My brother and I have been here our whole lives. We woke up to see the barn on fire." Mia nodded, scanning the dark fields for any sign of the arsonist. No one else around. "Did you see bikes? Vehicles? Anything suspicious?" Rachel shook her head. "Only the glow of the fire. By the time we got out here, the place was already up in flames. But we've been hearing rumors about these bikers harassing folks across the county. They must have chosen us tonight." "Why you?" Mia asked. The woman gave a humorless snort. "We refused to let them store equipment on our property, meaning who knows what. Guns, drugs, didn't matter. They offered us a chunk of cash, tried to scare us, but we turned them down. This is their answer." Mia's fist clenched. She directed her flashlight beam at the ground, searching for tire tracks. Footprints, something that might indicate the direction the arsonist fled. But the ground was hard-packed, and the glare of the fire cast dancing shadows that made it hard to pick out details. A loud crack interrupted her thoughts as part of the barn's roof collapsed. Embers swirled upward. Rachel's brother shouted for everyone to move back. The flames were winning this battle. The group retreated, still splashing water along the perimeter to prevent the fire from spreading to nearby structures. Mia scanned the area again, ensuring no one else was in danger. "You called the fire department?" she asked. Rachel nodded. "Sheriff too, but it's a volunteer department. They'll get here when they can." Mia felt an urgent pull to help these people. The Seal Reapers were moving from threats to full-blown violence. And if these ranchers had defied them, odds were that Marge and her diner might be next. As the barn collapsed into a raging inferno, Mia knew the structure was lost. But maybe the rest of the ranch could be saved. She stayed with the Mallisters, forming a bucket brigade to soak the hay bales in the surrounding brush. Each minute stretched long under the heat and the roar of flames. She couldn't say how much time passed before she finally heard sirens wailing in the distance. By the time the volunteer fire truck and a county sheriff's cruiser arrived, there was little left to do except contain the blaze and prevent it from spreading. The barn was reduced to a skeletal frame crackling in the night, sending an orange glow flickering across the land. Exhausted Mia stepped back as the firefighters took over with their hoses dousing the remaining hot spots. She leaned against the fence post, wiping sweat from her brow. The sheriff, a wiry man with graying hair, approached, notepad in hand. "Ma'am, I don't think I've seen you before. You local?" "No, just a passing truck driver," Mia answered, keeping her tone polite. Her eyes flicked to his badge, which read, Sheriff Tomlin. Tomlin glanced at the collapsed barn, his face tight with anger. "I'm guessing this wasn't an accident." Rachel, standing nearby, stepped forward, still clutching the bandana Mia had given her. "These bikers, Steel Reapers, did this. They threatened us a while back." The sheriff scribbled in his notebook. "They've been causing trouble all over. We've gotten multiple reports of extortion, vandalism, even some beatings. But we've been stretched thin, and he broke off, looking uncomfortable. Mia picked up on his unease. She suspected that local law enforcement might be under-resourced or even intimidated into minimal action. The Steel Reapers probably exploited that weakness ruthlessly. Frustration flared in Rachel's eyes. How many more people have to be attacked before something's done? Tomlin let out a resigned sigh. Look, I'm doing what I can. We're coordinating with state police, but these guys move around fast. They show up, cause chaos, and vanish. And some folks are too scared to cooperate. So we have little to go on. As the firefighters finished securing the area, Mia realized her presence here would likely raise questions. She needed to maintain a low profile. "I should get going," she said quietly, turning to Rachel. "I'm sorry about your barn." Rachel offered a grateful if weary smile. "Thank you for stopping. We might have lost our entire ranch if you hadn't helped." Mia gave a curt nod, stepping away. She felt the sheriff's eyes on her, but didn't engage further. The fewer details she shared, the better. Walking back toward her truck on the darkened roadside, Mia couldn't help feeling an urgent sense of responsibility. She'd just witnessed the destructive lengths these bikers would go to, and buckaroos might be a prime target if Marge refused to sell or pay them off. When she reached her rig, she slipped inside and locked the door. Her heart still pounded with adrenaline, her clothes reeking of smoke. The night air smelled of ash and defeat. She took a moment to breathe, wrestling with the knowledge that driving away wouldn't make the Steel Reapers disappear. Her mind replayed every covert mission she'd undertaken. Times when she'd used her expertise to neutralize threats far more dangerous than a biker gang. She flicked on the engine, casting the interior in a dim glow from the dashboard. With a deep breath, she decided her next move. She had to check on Buckaroo's last stand. Whether or not she intended to fight these outlaws, she needed to confirm Marge and Carla were safe. Then she'd figure out the rest. Mia drove through the rest of the night, her headlights cutting a narrow path in the darkness. The stars above were bright and innumerable, but her mind was too preoccupied to take solace in them. She replayed every detail from the Mallister ranch. The menacing emblem, the sheriff's frustration, the fear etched on Rachel's face. All of it underscored just how quickly this area was deteriorating under the Steel Reaper's aggression. As dawn broke, she turned onto the familiar highway that led to Buckaroo's. The horizon glowed with streaks of pink and orange, heralding a new day. Mia felt a pang of uncertainty. What if she was too late? She braced herself for the worst, but hoped for the best. Even from a distance, she could tell there wasn't any smoke in the scar or unusual commotion near the diner. Relief washed over her as she pulled into the gravel lot. The place looked peaceful in the early morning light, just as she had left it. A lone pickup truck was parked near the entrance, and the gas pumps were quiet. Mia turned off her engine, stepping out into a crisp breeze. Almost immediately, she noticed a fresh scrape of black spray paint on the side of the building, half scrubbed away but still visible. She recognized the outline of the steel skull symbol. Her chest tightened. She hurried inside. The bell above the door chimed, but nobody was at the counter. Chairs were still stacked on tables. It seemed the diner hadn't opened for the morning rush yet. "Hello," Mia called out, stepping deeper into the diner. The lights were on in the kitchen area, and she heard muffled voices. Rounding the corner, she found Marge and Carla kneeling on the floor, scrubbing at a stubborn black stain near the back door. Her heart sank. The same steel skull had been spray-painted there. Both women looked up, startled. When they saw Mia, relief flickered in their eyes. "Oh, thank goodness," Carla said, rising to her feet. She wore a bandage on one forearm. We thought you'd moved on for good." Marge stood as well, wiping her hands on her apron. The lines of worry on her face looked deeper than before. "We had a visit from some of those bikers a couple of nights ago. They didn't do much besides throw some paint around and break a window. But they made threats. Said we should think real hard about selling." Her voice trembled slightly with anger. "I told them where to shove it." Mia's jaw tensed. "Did they hurt anyone?" Carla grimaced. "One of them shoved me into a table and I got a nasty cut on my arm. Could have been worse if a customer hadn't intervened. Some older ranch hand. He got a bruised rib for his trouble. The police took our statement, but the bikers were gone by then. They left these tags everywhere." She motioned to the black streaks on the walls. Mia's gaze flicked around, noticing a boarded-up window and a toppled display rack near the door. It was a stark testament to the Steel Reaper tactics of intimidation. "I ran into something similar last night," she murmured. "They burned down a barn." Marge shook her head in dismay. "They're trying to scare us all into submission. Are you here to help or just checking in?" A knot formed in Mia's stomach. She hadn't fully decided yet, but seeing the damage up close, hearing Carla's shaken tone, made her realize she couldn't walk away. She rested a hand on the battered door frame. "I'm here to see if you need backup," she said quietly. "We can't let them get away with this." Margaret's relief was palpable, yet a cautious glimmer flickered in her eyes. She studied Mia as if seeing her in a new light. "Baka, honey, no offense, but these are dangerous people. Even the sheriff can't keep them in line. You're a skilled truck driver. That's clear enough." But she trailed off hesitant to speak the unspoken thought. "Are you prepared for a fight like this?" Carla, however, latched on to Mia's words with a surge of hope. "Maybe we can band together. Get the town's folk or some of the local ranchers involved. Strength in numbers." "Right," Mia ickled, weighing her response. She couldn't exactly broadcast her past life in Delta Force, but she also couldn't stand aside and pretend she was just an average trucker. "I've seen situations like this before," she said diplomatically. "And I know a thing or two about handling troublemakers. We just need a plan, something to discourage them from hitting here again." Marge nodded slowly, her gaze flicking to the boarded-up window. "I'm not about to sell my diner or knuckle under to these bullies. This place is my life." She sighed, shoulders slumping. "But if they come back in force, I'm not sure how we'll defend ourselves." Mia scanned the diner. It was a simple layout, an open seating area, a counter, the kitchen, and a storage room at the back. There were a few windows easily broken if someone wanted quick entry. Thoughts of how to fortify the building churned in her mind. She pushed them aside momentarily and returned her focus to the two women. "Have you spoken to any of the ranchers or other business owners nearby? Maybe they're tired of these threats too." Carla nodded. "A few. Some are game to push back, but most are too scared. The Reapers are notorious for retaliation." She hesitated. "If only we had real protection like bigger guns or trained security." Mia didn't flinch at the mention of guns. She carefully kept her expression neutral. "Guns won't be enough. We need strategy coordination. But first, let's talk to whoever's willing to stand up for themselves. If we pull resources and watch each other's backs, we might turn the tables." A spark of determination flared in Marge's eyes. She removed her apron, looking unexpectedly formidable. "All right, let's do it. I'll call some people. We'll hold a meeting after hours. But I need to know, are you in this for the long haul, Mia? Because once we make a stand, we can't back down." Mia swallowed. She thought about her empty trailer waiting outside the open road, beckoning. She remembered the vow she'd made to start over away from violence. Yet here she was on the cusp of diving headlong into a fight she hadn't initiated. Still, she couldn't walk away from these people. "I'm in," she said, her voice firm. "Let's meet tonight. We'll figure out our next move." With that, Carla managed a small smile. "I'll make sure we have coffee for everyone. Might need it if we're going to plan through the night." Before they could say more, the bell above the front door jingled. A customer, a dusty rancher with a worn hat, stepped inside, pausing briefly to glance at the boarded window. Business as usual had to continue. Marge couldn't afford to shut down. The world might be closing in, but the diner still had mouths to feed. "Go on, do what you need to do," Mia said gently. "I'll stick around. Maybe check the perimeter. See how we can shore things up." Marge nodded gratefully. Carla returned to the scrubbing, determined to erase the Reaper's mark from the diner's walls. Meanwhile, Mia took a moment to stand by the window, scanning the dusty parking lot outside. This was no overseas mission with an official directive. It was a personal choice to protect good people from a local threat. And she'd do it without revealing who she truly was, unless that became the only option left. While the diner opened for the morning crowd, Mia slipped out to inspect the exterior of the building. She walked a slow circle around Buckaroo's, noting potential vulnerabilities, windows without protective grates, a rear door secured by a flimsy lock, and a wide alley that offered concealed approach from the back. If the Steel Reapers wanted to stage a nighttime attack, they had multiple angles to do it. Her next stop was the small garage and convenience store attached to the truck stop. An older mechanic named Lester ran the garage. Mia found him hunched over a workbench tinkering with a carburetor. He looked up, squinting through thick glasses. "Help you?" Mia introduced herself. "I'm assisting Marge and Carlo with some security concerns. I was wondering if you've had any run-ins with those bikers." Lester spat into a rag. "Run-ins P. They came around last week. Asked if I'd close the garage at certain times so they could use it for private business. Told him I'd rather retire than let criminals run my shop." He shrugged, though his trembling hands betrayed lingering fear. "Haven't heard from them since, but I'm expecting a second visit any day now." Mia nodded. "We're hoping to organize a meeting tonight to discuss how to handle them. Think you'd come?" "Damn straight," he grunted. "Been working with Marge's husband since way back. Didn't serve in the war to come home and let some punks ruin our place." Satisfied with his willingness to help, Mia thanked him and headed next door to the convenience store. Inside, a teenage clerk with neon green hair sat behind the counter scrolling on her phone. She didn't even glance up until Mia called out, "Hey, do you have a manager around?" That'd be me, kind of," the girl said. She flicked her phone screen off, looking sheepish. "Name's Paisley. I helped run the place for my aunt." Mia explained the situation and asked if they'd be open to some sort of cooperative neighborhood watch. Paisley's eyes widened. "I heard about the vandalism, but I didn't think they'd target us. We don't have anything valuable, except maybe a few candy bars." She chewed her lip. "Still, my aunt might be interested." "She hates bullies." "Great. Meeting at the diner tonight after closing," Mia said. "Spread the word to anyone else who might join." Leaving the convenience store, Mia felt cautiously optimistic. Several people around here clearly had backbone. They just needed guidance. But she also knew the Steel Reapers weren't amateurs. They would escalate quickly if they sensed organized resistance. She took a moment to scan the horizon. Bright sunlight poured across the parking lot, illuminating a landscape that looked deceptively peaceful. Returning to her truck, she retrieved a small notepad. She jotted down rough sketches of the diner and the surrounding buildings, marking vulnerable points in possible vantage spots. If it came to a real confrontation, she'd have to leverage every advantage, like controlling sight lines and covering potential entry points. The day wore on with a trickle of customers coming and going. Each time a motorcycle passed on the highway, Mia felt a jolt of tension. None stopped. By late afternoon, she heard that word had spread about an evening gathering. Perhaps 24 people planned to show up. Not exactly an army, but maybe enough to make a stand if they followed a plan devised by someone who'd orchestrated more than her share of defense scenarios in far more hostile environments. Night descended on Buckaroo's last stand with an uneasy calm. The diner officially closed at 8:00 p.m., but Marge had kept the lights on for the meeting. By 8:30, small clusters of people arrived. Ranchers, shop owners, a couple of truckers who frequented the place, and even one off-duty deputy from the county sheriff's office. They all wore guarded expressions, a mix of anxiety and resolve. Mia observed them from a booth near the back, making mental notes. Marge cleared her throat, stepping forward in front of the counter. "I appreciate y'all coming. We've been dealing with threats from the Steel Reapers, and it's time we stand together." Her voice was steady, though her gaze flicked nervously around the group. "We can't rely on the sheriff alone. They're short-staffed. We've got to protect each other." Lester the mechanic spoke next, arms folded. "Those thugs want to use my garage for their dirty business. I'm not letting them, but I can't face them alone." And others chimed in with their own stories. Demands for protection fees, random vandalism, threats of bodily harm. The deputy, a stocky man named Russell, rubbed his temples in frustration. "Look, I'm here off the record. My boss doesn't want us acting like vigilantes, but the department can't cover every corner of the county. If folks stand together, at least we might deter some of the smaller attacks." Eventually, all eyes turned to Mia. She tried to appear calm, though adrenaline prickled at the back of her neck. She rose from the booth, clearing her throat. "I'm Mia. I've been a trucker passing through these parts, but I've seen enough to know these bikers won't stop unless we show them they can't push us around. We need a strategy." She moved to a small whiteboard Carla had propped near the counter. Using a marker, Mia sketched the layout of the diner garage and convenience store. "Here's the main choke point. If we position a watch here during nighttime hours, we can monitor any unusual traffic on the road. It doesn't have to be armed men, just a vehicle with lights and maybe a radio to call for backup. The goal is deterrence." A murmur ran through the crowd. One rancher asked, "What if they come in force? We've heard rumors they roll 20 deep sometimes." Mia nodded. "We can't fight a paramilitary force, but the Steel Reapers likely won't all ride in at once. They rely on intimidation, picking targets one by one. If we coordinate, we can gather enough people to outnumber them when they show up. We also need a communication chain, phone calls or texts that can quickly alert everyone to trouble." She glanced at Russell. "Deputy, maybe you can help set that up." He nodded wearily. "I can pass along a list of numbers, set up a group text for emergencies. Just be careful how you respond. Don't want anyone getting hurt." Mia sensed skepticism in the room. Some worried looks passed between folks who weren't accustomed to confrontation. She softened her tone. "We're not trying to start a war, but these bullies expect compliance because they think we're scared and alone. If we show a united front, they might back off, or at least think twice before escalating." Carla stepped forward. "Y'all know me. I'm no soldier, but I refuse to let them destroy our home. If you've got better ideas, speak up." A silence followed. Then Paisley from the convenience store raised her hand. "I can volunteer to watch from the store's window at night. I'll keep my phone handy. It's not much, but at least we'll have eyes on the pumps." Gradually, the tension lifted as more people offered small contributions. Another offered an old CB radio. A rancher volunteered his pickup truck for night patrol, and Lester proposed setting up booby traps made from spare junk parts. Mia cautioned him to keep it non-lethal, which drew a small chuckle. By meeting's end, a loose plan had formed. A neighborhood watch with rotating shifts, swift communication, and a vow that they wouldn't knuckle under. It wasn't foolproof, but it was more than they had before. As the group dispersed around 10:00, Mia felt both relieved and apprehensive. The seeds of resistance had been sown, but she knew the Steel Reapers were no ordinary bullies. They might shrug off half measures and retaliate with ruthless aggression. Still, it was a start. Carla locked the diner's doors behind the departing neighbors. Only she, Marge, and Mia remained inside the fluorescent lights, humming in the silence. Marge exhaled a weary sigh. "I appreciate you stepping up, but I can tell you've done this sort of thing before." Mia tensed, realizing Marge was probing for details. She searched for a careful reply. "I've, been in tough spots overseas. Learned a few tactics along the way. Nothing official." The half-truth tasted bitter in her mouth, but she wasn't ready to reveal her Delta Force background. Marge studied her, a thoughtful gleam in her eye. "Overseas, huh? Well, I won't pry. Just glad you're on our side." She brushed her hands on her apron. "You can sleep in one of the spare rooms upstairs if you'd like. It's small, but more private than your truck." Mia hesitated. Staying on site made sense for now. If the Reaper showed up, she'd be right here, but it also increased the risk of being cornered. "Thank you. I'll take you up on that just for a night or two." Carla rummaged in a drawer near the counter and pulled out a key. "Room 3B. Watch your head. The ceiling's low." She forced a small smile. Mia took the key, gratitude mingling with guilt. Part of her wanted to keep her distance, remain a lone operator who could vanish if things went south. But these people were counting on her now. She followed Carla upstairs to a narrow hallway. Faded wallpaper and creaky floorboards spoke of the diner's long history. Carla gestured to a door on the left. "Here you go. Clean sheets, I think. Let me know if you need anything." "Thanks," Mia replied, stepping inside. It was a simple room with a twin bed, a small dresser, and a single window that overlooked the parking lot. She flicked on the lamp's soft light, revealing dust motes dancing in the air. Setting her duffel bag on the dresser, she locked the door behind her. After removing her boots and jacket, she took a moment to peer through the window. The neon glow of the diner sign flickered below. Beyond that lay the dark expanse of the highway. She could faintly see her parked truck, and further out, the silhouettes of distant hills. No motorcycles, no sign of immediate trouble. Yet her nerves remained taut. She turned off the lamp and settled onto the bed, propping herself against the pillows. Against her better judgment, she retrieved her sidearm from her bag, checking the safety. Normally, she'd keep it locked away, but tonight, she placed it under the pillow. It was an old companion, one she'd hoped never to rely on again. But if the Rapers forced her hand, she wouldn't hesitate. Exhaustion pulled out her eyelids, but her mind raced with scenarios. She pictured the Rapers rolling up 20 strong headlights glaring. She imagined the panicked calls, the adrenaline surge, the potential violence. Shaking off the images, she reminded herself that the best defense was preparedness. Tomorrow, she'd refine the watch plan, maybe reinforce the diner's doors and windows. If she could buy enough time, the Reapers might move on, or slip up enough for the sheriff to clamp down. Eventually, sleep overtook her, though it was a shallow, fitful rest, haunted by flickers of combat memories she'd tried so hard to bury. A persistent buzzing dragged Mia from her uneasy slumber. She fumbled in the dark for her phone, blinking at the screen. 4:21 a.m. The call displayed unknown number. Mia's heart lurched. Who would be calling at this hour? She answered, voice hushed. "Hello, Mia. It's me, Carla." The words tumbled out urgent and breathless. "I'm downstairs. There's something you need to see." Mia jolted upright, flicking on the lamp. "What's wrong?" "Hurry," Carla whispered, then hung up. A shot of adrenaline banished all traces of grogginess. Mia quickly pulled on her boots and jacket, tucking her sidearm into the waist of her jeans. She crept out of the room and descended the stairs, every sense on high alert. At the bottom of the stairwell, she spotted Carla standing by the darkened diner windows. The neon sign outside was off now. Marge must have shut it down for the night. A single fluorescent bulb above the counter cast a pale glow over Carla's anxious face. "What is it?" Mia asked softly, stepping beside her. Carla pointed out the window, her hand shaking. "Look." Through the glass, Mia could make out a figure moving in the parking lot, hunched near the rear of Mia's truck. At first, it looked like a shadow, but then she caught the glint of metal as the figure fiddled with something near the trailer tires. A surge of anger and alarm coursed through her. "Sabotage," she whispered. "They're messing with the rig." Carla swallowed hard. "I was cleaning up in the kitchen and saw movement through the window. I didn't know what to do, so I called you." Me appeared into the darkness, trying to discern if there were more than one intruder. So far, she only saw the single figure. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me if I go out. Don't open it for anyone but me or Marge. Understood?" Carla nodded, eyes wide with fear. "Be careful." Mia slipped into the diner's kitchen, heading for the back exit. The metal door led to a small alley which opened onto the lot. She paused briefly to listen for footsteps. Hearing none, she eased the door open. The cool pre-dawn air hit her, and she moved swiftly yet silently along the side of the building. Crouching by a row of trash cans, she spotted the intruder again, closer this time. The figure knelt by the rear axle of her truck, seemingly attaching something. A few feet away lay a small black duffel bag, likely filled with tools or supplies for whatever mischief was underway. With a steadying breath, Mia weighed her options. She could confront the culprit outright, risking a fight. Or she could observe a few more seconds to identify the nature of the device. If it was a simple act of vandalism, the approach might differ from if they were planting something more dangerous, like an explosive. Her stomach churned at the possibility. In Delta Force, she'd neutralize enemy operatives in far more treacherous conditions. But this was different. No official mission, no backup team, just her alone in the desert, defending a diner and a truck she called home. She steeled herself. Maybe she didn't have official orders, but she had the will to protect innocent people. Staying low, she inched closer, hand hovering near her concealed pistol. The figure remained intent on their task, shining a small pen light on the axle. Mia counted down silently in her head. 3, 2, 1. Then she sprang from cover, leveling her weapon. "Stop. Hands where I can see them." The intruder froze, pen light tumbling from their grasp. For a split second, Mia's eyes caught the glimmer of a tattoo on the person's wrist. A steel skull. No doubt about it, she thought. "Steel Reapers. Hands up." Mia repeated, voice, steady, gun trained on the figure. They rose slowly back, turned to her. She could see a hoodie pulled low, but the posture suggested a smaller build than some of the hulking bikers she'd encountered before. "Turn around slowly," she commanded. In the dim glow of the pen light, the intruder pivoted, raising both hands at chest level. Mia's heart skipped. This was a woman, maybe in her late 20s, her eyes wild with panic. She wore a black bandana that partially covered her hair, and a motorcycle vest was tied around her waist. "Whoa, easy," the intruder hissed, lip curling. "You don't need that gun pointed at me." Mia gestured for her to move away from the truck. "Step back now." The woman complied, taking 2 cautious steps backward. Mia kept her gun raised, though doubt flickered at the edge of her mind. Confrontations with female adversaries were rare in her past missions, but not unheard of. If this woman was part of the Steel Reapers, She was potentially just as dangerous as any man. "What were you doing to my truck?" Mia asked. She flicked her gaze to the black duffel bag on the ground. "It's just a little sabotage," the woman sneered. "Loosen some lug nuts. Maybe slash some lines. You can't ride if your rig's busted." A surge of anger flared in Mia. "Why? Under whose orders?" The intruder smirked, though there was a tremor in her voice. "You come snooping around messing in our affairs. People take notice. This is your warning. Mind your own business." Mia realized that even if she got this woman to talk, the Reapers were likely already on a warpath. She needed intel, though. "Where's the rest of your crew?" The woman's eyes flicked around, assessing potential escape routes. Mia tensed, anticipating a sudden move. "Maybe they're nearby. Maybe not," the intruder said cryptically. "Point is, you made yourself an enemy by stirring up trouble." Before Mia could respond, the woman lunged sideways, aiming to grab something from the duffel bag. Mia reacted instantly, kicking the bag away. Her attacker stumbled, hissing in frustration. "Don't!" Mia barked, stepping forward to pin the woman's arm. The intruder swung wildly, landing a glancing blow on Mia's shoulder. Pain radiated through Mia's upper arm, but she held firm, twisting the woman's wrist until she let out a yelp and dropped to one knee. A half-second later, Mia had her pinned against the gravel guns, still in her free hand. "Stay down," she warned, though her own heart hammered. She wrestled with the idea of calling for Carla or Marge, but she wasn't sure if that would help or complicate things. The woman spat gravel from her mouth, glaring up at Mia with defiance. "Go ahead, shoot me. You'll just make it worse for yourself." Mia shook her head. "Not my style, but you're coming inside." She patted the intruder down with her free hand, finding a small switchblade and a phone. She pocketed both, ensuring there were no more surprises. With effort, she forced the woman to her feet, arms pinned behind her. The woman strained in protest. "Let me go. Not until you tell me what I want to know," Mia interrupted. The old Delta Force interrogation stands came flooding back to her muscle memory. How to keep a prisoner from escaping without inflicting unnecessary harm. The intruder's eyes blazed. "I ain't telling you squat. And if you know what's good for you, you'll get out of town because next time it won't be just one of us." Mia pressed her lips together, resisting the urge to snap back. She was keenly aware that at any moment more bikers could roll in. She needed to make this quick figure out what she could from this lone saboteur, and then decide what to do. "Move," Mia ordered, guiding the captive toward the diner's back door. She tried to keep her grip firm, but not cruel. She was no sadist, but a show of force might be the only language the Reapers respected. Her heart pounded with the realization that the situation was escalating fast, and she was in the thick of it, whether she liked it or not. Mia pushed open the diner's back door, keeping the intruder's arms pinned. Carla stood just inside, face pale, as she registered the captured biker. She quickly locked the door behind them. "Marge is upstairs." "I didn't want to wake her yet," Carla whispered, voice trembling. "Probably a good call," Mia muttered, guiding the hostile woman toward a small storage area off to the side of the kitchen. She flicked on the light, revealing shelves stocked with canned goods, paper towels, and cleaning supplies. It wasn't an ideal holding spot, but it was private enough to keep prying eyes out. "Carla, can you fetch me some rope or zip ties?" The intruder scoffed. "Zip ties? What is this? Some amateur hour?" Mia ignored the jab, maintaining her grip. Moments later, Carla returned with a coil of nylon rope. Mia secured the biker's wrist behind her back, making sure it wasn't too tight to cut off circulation, but tight enough to prevent escape. With the woman seated on the floor, Mia crouched down. "What's your name?" "None of your damn business," came the snarled reply. Carla hovered nearby, nervous but determined. She looked at Mia as if seeking permission, then stepped closer. "Why are you doing this to us? We haven't done anything wrong." The biker rolled her eyes. "Your diner's on land. Our boss wants." Marge turned down the offer, so now we make it uncomfortable. "Same deal as always." Mia's jaw tightened. "Your boss, he's the one orchestrating these attacks." The woman gave a mirthless chuckle. "You're so clueless. We're not just some ragtag group. The Steel Reapers have chapters all over the state. Our local leader, Hawk, calls the shots. But we've got connections. Big connections." She smirked as if expecting Mia and Carla to quake in fear. Carla folded her arms, though Mia could see her hand shaking. "And you do this to everyone who says no. Burn down barns, vandalize buildings, attack innocent people." The biker shrugged. "Got to make a point. Hawk says this strip of highway is key for our distribution network. Anyone in the way either cooperates or gets run out." Mia exchanged a look with Carla. So the rumors were true. The Steel Reapers were using these remote stops as logistical hubs for contraband. Mia inhaled slowly. "And you were here to sabotage my trog because you're meddling?" The biker, spat eyes fixating on Mia. "We got word that some doggood or trucker is rallying the locals. We don't like that." "Too bad," Mia replied calmly. She leaned in, voice low. "Here's the thing. You and your gang have underestimated who you're messing with." The woman's face flickered with confusion, then morphed into derision. "Oh, please, spare me the tough talk. I've seen real fighters. You're just a driver playing hero." Mia didn't bother explaining her true background. Instead, she kept her tone even. "What's Hawk's next move?" "Like I tell you," the biker snapped. Carla took a step back, looking unnerved. "What do we do now, Mia? We can't just keep her here, and if we let her go, she'll run straight back to her gang." Mia bit her lip. "We call the sheriff. Let them handle this. At least it documents that we caught one of them in the act." The truth was, she wanted more intelligence, but a formal arrest might be the best way to keep this woman off the streets temporarily. She pulled out her phone, dialing the station. The line rang repeatedly before a weary dispatcher picked up. "This is Buckaroo's last stand," Mia said. "We have someone here who tried to sabotage a vehicle. She's tied up in our storage room. We need an officer ASAP." As she gave the location, the biker hissed, "You're making a big mistake. Hawk doesn't forgive. Or forget." Mia pretended not to hear, but a chill ran down her spine. She just hoped the sheriff's deputies would arrive before Hawk or any of his men decided to show up on their own. In less than 20 minutes, 2 county patrol cars pulled into the truck stop, red and blue lights strobing against the diner's walls. Mia and Carla stood outside the storage room, tense and waiting. Marge, awakened by the commotion, had joined them, her face set in grim determination. Deputy Russell, the same off-duty officer who'd attended last night's meeting, stepped in, accompanied by a younger deputy Mia didn't recognize. They surveyed the tied-up biker with a mixture of surprise and caution. "You weren't kidding, G," Russell said, exhaling sharply. He knelt beside the woman, checking her bindings and reading her rights. "Anything you say can be used against you," he recited. She glared in sullen silence. Mia explained how she caught the biker sabotaging her truck and briefly mentioned the scuffle. Russell scribbled in a notepad. "We'll take her into custody, might charge her with attempted vandalism or property damage. We'll see if the DA wants to push it further." "Good luck," the biker sneered. "I'll be out in no time. You don't even have enough to hold me more than a night." Russell's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. He and the other deputy helped the biker to her feet and led her to the patrol car. As they passed Mia, the biker locked eyes with her. "You've just signed a death warrant for everyone here." Hawk won't stand for this." Then she spat at the ground near Mia's boots. Once they were gone, Marge shook her head. "Charming. And she might be right about bailing out quickly. Our county jail is small." Mia felt a heaviness settle in her chest. The last thing she wanted was to endanger innocent people further. But letting the saboteur go free wasn't an option either. "At least the sheriff's department has a record now," she said quietly. "And maybe holding her for a day will force the gang to reconsider. They'll know we're not easy pickings." Carla let out a shaky breath, hugging herself. "You saw how she looked at us, though, like she'd burn this place down the second she's out." Mia placed a reassuring hand on Carla's shoulder. "We'll stay vigilant. That's all we can do for now. Let's check the damage on my truck. See if it's drivable." Together they headed to the parking lot. The sky had begun to lighten, heralding dawn. The world looked deceptively calm, but an undercurrent of dread pulsed through each of them. Mia knelt by the rear axle, spotting loosened lug nuts and some partially cut brake lines. She hissed in annoyance. This would have been catastrophic if she'd hit the road and lost braking power at high speed. "Nothing that can't be fixed," Mia noted, glancing at Marge. "But I'll have to replace the lines. Any chance Lester can help once his garage opens?" Marge nodded. "He'll do it first thing. Might take a few hours to get the parts, though." "That's fine," Mia said, wiping sweat from her brow. "We have bigger concerns than my delivery schedule." The truth stung. She'd likely lose money and time, but she was neck-deep in a more important battle now. Marge sighed, looking out at the empty highway. "You've put yourself in harm's way for us, Mia. It's not right. You should be free to move on." Carla interjected, shaking her head. "Don't listen to her. We need you. If that woman was just a scout, imagine what the main group could do." Mia rose, brushing dust from her hands. "I'm here. I'm not leaving you to face this alone." She spoke with more conviction than she felt, but she knew it was the only path that aligned with her conscience. If the Steel Reapers were doubling down, she'd have to be ready. Ready to reveal more of her capabilities if push came to shove. By mid-morning, the diner opened again, though the atmosphere was grim. Word of the overnight arrest spread quickly among the local folks who stopped by for breakfast. Some were emboldened, sharing that the gang had finally been thwarted in one of their acts. Others fretted that the move would invite swift retaliation. Mia spent the next few hours coordinating with the Lester in the garage. The older mechanic grimaced at the severed brake lines. "They were fixing to make you crash." "No doubt about it," he said, rummaging through his cluttered shelves for replacement parts. "Lucky you caught her in time. I'll need the rig fully functional in case I have to move people or supplies," Mia said, "or if we have to evacuate." A dark thought, but one that needed voicing. If the Steel Reapers attacked in numbers, hunkering down at Buckaroo's might become impossible. Mia's phone buzzed with messages from other community members in the alert group chat that had been set up. She scanned them. A rancher reported seeing 3 bikers idling near his fence line before they sped off. A store owner in Sunfall Creek said more Reaper graffiti appeared on her back alley door. Deputy Russell reminded everyone to stay cautious and report suspicious activity. While Lester labored under the truck's chassis, Mia made a quick run to the convenience store for supplies. Paisley, the teenage clerk-cum-manager, was behind the counter chewing bubble gum. She brightened when Mia entered. "Hey, you're the one who caught that saboteur, right? That's so badass." Mia gave a cautious nod, just doing what needed to be done. Paisley gestured at a bulletin board near the door plastered with wanted posters and local event flyers. "Sheriff's office put up a notice about the Steel Reapers. Says if anyone sees them, call 911 immediately." Mia studied the notice. It offered a small reward for information leading to arrests. The photograph was grainy, showing a group of bikers lined up in front of a bar, with the Steel Reaper patch plainly visible. No faces were clearly identifiable, but the man at the center, tall, muscular, with a shaved head, was presumably Hawk. "They don't list any individual names," Mia murmured. "Just the gang as a whole." "Yeah, that's the problem. Everybody knows they're around, but no one can pin them down." Paisley blew a bubble and snapped it. "Still, maybe them losing one of their members to an arrest will slow them down." Mia wasn't so sure. "Let's hope." She grabbed a few items: canned food, a case of water, a first aid kit replacement for what she used during the baby delivery, and paid quickly. Her mind turned with plans. She recalled how in special ops, controlling the narrative and momentum was crucial. If the Steel Reapers were rattled by the arrest, they might come back in force. Alternatively, they could bide their time until the woman was released, then strike together. After returning to the garage, she found Lester finishing up. He wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag. "All set, Mia. Just test it out before you haul a heavy load. Brake fluids topped off, lines replaced. She should run fine." Maya thanked him and offered payment, which he waved off initially. "Keep your money. You're practically our guardian angel around here." Under her insistence, he relented to a partial payment to cover parts. Driving the truck around the lot, Mia tested the brakes. They felt responsive, good enough for any short-distance runs in the area. She parked it back near the diner engine, idling softly. For a fleeting moment, she considered hooking up her trailer and leaving this whole mess behind. Yet the faces of Marge, Carla, and the rest of the locals kept surfacing in her mind. She couldn't abandon them now. That lingering question from her Delta days hovered. How far am I willing to go to protect them? And deep down she knew the answer was all the way. Near midday, a call came in from Deputy Russell. He wanted me a present at the station while they processed the arrested biker. "She's got a high-risk lawyer from out of town," he explained over the phone, anxiety evident in his tone. "They're raising all kinds of technicalities. Could use a witness statement." Mia exchanged a glance with Marge and Carla. "I'll go," she said, "but keep me updated if anything suspicious happens around here." She slipped her sidearm into a lockbox in the truck's cab. No sense bringing a firearm into the sheriff's station unless absolutely necessary. Then she climbed into the driver's seat and set off for the county seat about 30 minutes away. The station was a modest brick building near a courthouse, its parking lot sparsely filled. Mia parked and headed inside. Deputy Russell met her in the lobby, dark circles under his eyes. "Thanks for coming. The woman you caught, her name's Cassidy Brewer. Lawyer claims we've got nothing but hearsay and an illegal citizen's arrest." Mia swallowed a flash of irritation. "It wasn't hearsay. I caught her in the act. And the law says we can detain someone committing a crime until police arrive." Russell nodded wearily. "Tell that to her lawyer. He's spinning it like you threatened her with a gun. Excessive force. So on." Mia stiffened. "I was defending my property from intentional sabotage." She took a calming breath. "Look, just tell me what you need. We need a solid statement describing exactly what happened. The district attorney might decide whether to press felony charges based on that." He led her down a corridor to a small interview room. Inside, Mia recounted the events calmly and thoroughly, omitting only the details about her special ops background. She emphasized that Cassidy was actively tampering with the truck and that Mia had used the minimum force needed to restrain her until deputies arrived. When the interview concluded, a tired, ill-looking ADA assistant district attorney approached. "We appreciate your cooperation, Miss Brooks. We'll do our best, but the defense is pushing for immediate bail. This woman has connections. Money. The judge may grant it given the alleged crime is vandalism rather than a violent felony." Mia clenched her jaw. It was an act that could have killed me on the road if my brakes failed. That's more than just vandalism. The AD shrugged helplessly. It's up to the judge's discretion. Mia left the station feeling a storm of conflicting emotions. The system was slow and easily manipulated by criminals with resources. Cassidy might be out by tomorrow, free to plot revenge. She paused by her truck, scanning the street for any sign of suspicious bikers. None stood out, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She climbed back into the cab and shut the door, leaning her forehead against the steering wheel. What if the Reapers come after me again? Or worse, target buckaroos? She considered calling an old military contact, but that could blow her cover if the request trickled through official channels. In the end, she started the engine with a grim resolve. They could tie her hands legally, but if she had to defend innocent people, she wouldn't hesitate to do so by any means necessary. Her Delta Force training had been about neutralizing threats swiftly. If the Steel Reapers continued to escalate, they'd be tangling with the wrong, ordinary trucker. Driving back to Buckaroos, Mia tried to maintain the speed limit, though her impatience made her foot press heavier on the accelerator. The desert scenery blurred past a landscape both beautiful and unforgiving. She recalled times overseas when the environment itself was a hazard, but now it was human malice posing the biggest threat. Upon arriving, she spotted an unusual sight. Two pickup trucks parked side by side loaded with wooden planks, sheet metal, and what looked like sandbags. She hopped out of her cab to find Marge Carla Lester and a couple of ranchers hauling supplies into the diner storeroom. "What's all this?" Mia asked, shutting her truck door. Carla smiled, though sweat glistened on her forehead. "We decided to reinforce the windows and doors, just in case." Lester suggested boarding up the weaker spots after hours. Some ranchers donated leftover construction materials. Mia felt a surge of gratitude and concern. That's a good idea for a short-term fix, but it might also signal we're preparing for a siege. She glanced around the lot, noticing more folks lingering than usual. "Any trouble while I was gone?" Marge shook her head, though her expression was grim. "Nope, but a few people have driven by real slow. Could be curious locals or, gang scouts." Nodding, Mia rolled up her sleeves and joined in, carrying boards inside. The plan was to reinforce the back door, install metal bars behind the front windows, and secure any other points of easy entry. It wouldn't make the diner an impenetrable fortress, but it might deter a casual attack. As they worked, conversation flowed about who would take shifts overnight. Lester volunteered to patrol the property line in his old pickup lights off, watching for any suspicious activity. Carla would man the phone line inside, ready to alert the new neighborhood group chat if trouble arose. Mia would coordinate from the diner, ensuring any approach was spotted before it reached the building. By dusk, the place took on a makeshift barricaded look, plywood covering windows from the inside, the back door fortified with an extra steel sheet. They tried to keep the exterior as normal-looking as possible so as not to scare away paying customers entirely. Still, the tension was unavoidable. Night fell in a hush of gathering clouds. Around 9:00 p.m., the diner closed and most of the regular staff went home, each carrying a small sense of dread about whether they'd find the place intact. The next morning, only Mia, Marge, and Carla remained along with Lester, who was parked discreetly down the road. Mia did a final perimeter check, circling the building with a flashlight. The desert wind whispered through the scrub, carrying the distant calls of coyotes. She paused near a spot where a security light cast a dim glow on the gravel lot, scanning for footprints or fresh tire tracks. Nothing obvious, but the nighttime darkness could hide many things. Inside, she reconvened with Marge and Carla. They sat at a corner booth, a pot of coffee between them. Carla rubbed her eyes, fatigue etched on her face. I keep expecting to hear engines roll up. Same here, Marge admitted. Every little noise makes me jump. Mia rested a reassuring hand on Margie's shoulder. We'll keep watch. If they come, we'll see them first. We have a plan to call everyone, including the deputy. Carla forced a half smile. Here's hoping it's just a quiet night. They fell into an uneasy vigil. The diner's lights dimmed to a faint glow. The hours crept by. Each passing minute waited with anticipation. Mia's phone lay on the table. Ring her on high. Outside, the darkness was thick, as if the desert itself held its breath. Shortly before midnight, Mia's instincts prickled. She thought she heard faintly the distant rumble of motorcycle engines. She exchanged a tense glance with Carla, who held her breath listening. The rumble faded, or maybe it was a trick of the wind. Yet Mia couldn't shake the sense that something was coming. And soon, they'd all be put to the test. Midnight settled over Buckaroo's last stand like a dark curtain thick with tension. Mia, Marge, and Carla remained at the corner booth, each nursing a mug of black coffee. The overhead fluorescent lights were dimmed, casting long shadows on the tiled floor. Every so often, the soft hum of the fridge would break the silence, or the ice machine would clunk in the back, causing all three women to jolt slightly. Outside, an occasional gust of wind rattled the plywood reinforcements. Mia checked her watch for what felt like the 100th time. Nearly half an hour had passed since she thought she heard the distant rumble of motorcycles. She'd texted Lester, who was on night patrol down the road. He reported no sightings. Yet Mia's instincts remained on high alert. Her training told her that an attack often came in waves of intimidation, followed by a sudden strike. Carla glanced at her phone. Nothing new from the group chat, she said softly. Everyone's at home, lights off, waiting. Marge sat down her coffee with a slight tremor in her hand. I feel like we're in a siege. This used to be a friendly roadside stop for travelers. Not. She pressed her lips together, unable to finish the thought. In the few days since the Steel Reapers had begun harassing them openly, the diner felt more like a frontier fort braced for invasion. Mia squared her shoulders. I know it's hard, but vigilance is our best weapon right now. She rose from the booth. I'll do another perimeter sweep. Lock the doors behind me and only open them if I say it's safe. Carla handed her a flashlight. Be careful. Stepping into the night, Mia took a moment to let her eyes adjust. The desert air was still the sky moonless. Overhead, countless stars glittered a beauty, at odds with the fear that weighed on her. She moved around the side of the diner, scanning every shadow. In the distance, a coyote howled, the sound echoing across the open land. Reaching the back of the building, she checked the new barricades. The extra sheet metal over the rear door was secure and the windows were covered from the inside. Nothing seemed disturbed. Still, her pulse thudded in her ears and she felt goosebumps on her arms. She circled around to the storage shed behind the diner, shining her flashlight between stacked crates and old pallets. Everything looked normal, no sign of lurking intruders. She retraced her steps toward the parking lot where her repaired 18-wheeler was parked. The brake lines and lug nuts were in order, thanks to Lester's diligent work. If she had to move quickly, at least she could rely on a rig. She'd also stashed a small go-bag in the cab containing extra ammo, medical supplies, and a spare phone charger. Lessons learned from years of clandestine ops, now repurposed for a civilian threat. As she scanned the darkness with her flashlight, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen showed a text from Lester. 2 bikes passing the old feed store. Headed your way. Stay sharp. Her heart kicked up. It could be nothing, but it could also be the vanguard of a bigger group. She hurried back inside, bolting the door behind her. Marge and Carla looked up anxiously. Possible inbound, Mia reported. Lester saw 2 bikes near the feed store. She glanced at the diner's clock. 12:27 a.m. We should be ready. Lights off, except maybe one in the kitchen. We want to see them before they see us. Carla's eyes widened, but she nodded. I'll alert the group chat. She typed rapidly, sending out a short, urgent message. Possible Reaper movement near diner. Stay on guard. Marge flipped the main switch, plunging the diner into near darkness. A hush fell over them, broken only by the soft hum of the refrigerator in the back. Mia exhaled, every nerve on edge. This might be a false alarm, or the start of the showdown they all dreaded. They waited in tense silence, clustered behind the counter. Mia watched through a narrow slit in the boarded window. The diner's neon sign was off, leaving the parking lot cloaked in shadow. From this vantage point, she had a partial view of the highway and the approach to Buckaroo's. Minutes felt like hours. Then faintly the soft rumble of motorcycle engines reached them. Mia's stomach tightened. She motioned for Marge and Carla to stay low. With careful, deliberate movements, she unholstered her concealed pistol, checking the safety one last time. She prayed she wouldn't have to use it, but readiness was non-negotiable. 2 headlights emerged from the darkness, riding side by side. They slowed as they neared Buckaroo's, then paused at the entrance to the parking lot. Mia's flashlight was off, but she could see the silhouettes of 2 riders wearing leather vests. She recognized the faint glint of a steel skull on one rider's back, even in the dim starlight. They idled there for several seconds, engines rumbling ominously, scanning the diner. Mia held her breath, counting the seconds, wondering if more bikes lingered out of sight. Is this a scouting mission, she thought, or the opening act of an attack? If the latter, she expected them to signal reinforcements. Suddenly, the 2 bikes split. One rider pulled forward, entering the lot, while the other remained near the road, presumably acting as a lookout. Mia crouched lower. She motioned for Carla to keep the phone ready in case they needed to alert the entire group to converge. They had a plan for such a call. Hopefully it would bring enough reinforcements to deter a full-scale assault. The single motorcycle circled the parking lot slowly, as if surveying. Its headlights swept across the diner's windows, casting moving beams of light through the cracks. Mia could almost feel the rider's gaze behind the visor, searching for signs of life. A sharp pang of anxiety gripped her. These men were predators sniffing around a target. She clenched her jaw, determined not to let fear sway her resolve. When the rider reached Mia's truck, they paused, leaning in, as if examining the tires or the trailer's plates. The engine revved, then abruptly, the headlight whipped around, pointing back toward the diner. Mia's phone buzzed softly. She glanced down. A text from Lester. Spotted 2 more bikes at the crossroads, possibly heading your way. Her heartbeat quickened, 4 bikers in total. If it escalated further, they might call in even more. She exchanged a glance with Carla and Marge, both of whom were wide-eyed. Outside, the rider by the truck lifted an arm and made a small, sharp gesture, likely some kind of hand signal. The other rider near the highway flicked their headlight in response. Mia tensed. This was the moment. Were they leaving, or were they about to converge? Then the rider near the truck suddenly revved the engine, speeding across the lot to rejoin the lookout. Together, they roared away into the night, heading in the direction Lester had indicated. Mia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They're gone for now. Marge stood, muscles trembling. Why leave after all that? Carla rubbed her arms. Maybe they're testing us, trying to see if we'd rush out or start shooting. Mia nodded. Could be, or maybe they're meeting up with the other 2 bikes Lester spotted. She sighed. Let's not drop our guard. They might be regrouping to attack when we're off balance. Her phone buzzed again. A quick update from the group chat. Some of the locals were awake, awaiting instructions. Deputy Russell was reportedly en route, though he was alone and over 20 minutes away. Mia grimaced. We might have to handle this ourselves if they come back soon. Everyone, stay sharp. The minutes dragged like hours. Outside the boarded windows, the desert remained eerily still, concealing whatever plans the Steel Reapers might be hatching. Mia kept Carla and Marge calm by reviewing their strategy if a direct assault occurred. Carla would take cover behind the counter with her phone, calling in backup. Marge would stay in the back, ready to lock down the kitchen area. Mia would remain mobile, able to respond wherever the threat emerged. They attempted to keep themselves busy to stave off fear. Carla prepared a pot of fresh coffee, the act of filling the filter and pouring water almost absurdly normal. Marge quietly checked the doors and windows again, making sure every reinforcement was secure. As 1 a.m. ticked past, the tension showed no sign of abating. Mia's phone chimed with a text from Lester. 4 bikes on the highway, heading west. I'm trailing. She showed the message to Carla, who swallowed hard. 4 bikes. Do you think they're all Reapers? Carla asked. Mia shrugged. Hard to say, but the coincidence is too great. I'm guessing yes. She squinted at the diner's front window, the faint starlight seeping through cracks in the plywood. We need to brace for the worst. Suddenly, a burst of headlights appeared on the highway, traveling fast. Mia's chest tightened. It had to be them. She rushed to the window, careful to keep herself unseen. 4 motorcycles roared past buckaroos, not slowing this time. Then they vanished into the darkness further down the road. Mia glanced at her phone. No new messages. If Lester was following, he wasn't able to text updates while driving. Marge exhaled shakily. Did they just pass us by? Maybe they're trying to lure Lester away? Mia replied, mind churning through possible tactics. If they can isolate him, we lose our eyes on the road. They could double back. The idea made Carla pale. Should we warn him? Mia typed a quick text. Watch your flank. They might double back, but received no immediate reply. Her worry for Lester spiked, though she tried not to show it. Instead, she turned to Marge and Carla. We have to be ready for a feint. Don't assume we're in the clear. For another 15 minutes, the night remained silent. Carla busied herself checking the group chat. A handful of neighbors were also on alert, sharing that they saw headlights zip by, but no other signs of the bikers. Marge tapped her foot anxiously, her gaze darting to the locked door each time a gust of wind rattled it. Then Mia heard a distant popping sound, like muffled gunshots carried by the wind. She stiffened. Carla froze, meeting Mia's eyes. Was that gunfire? I think, Mia whispered. She listened again. Another round of pops echoed faintly, coming from somewhere west of the diner's location. Anxiety flooded her system. Lester was out there tailing the gang, possibly walking into an ambush. Carla started to dial her phone. I'll call 911. Marge swallowed. If the Reapers are shooting at Lester, God. Mia could only shake her head. Her old instincts itched to jump in her truck and race to help. But leaving the diner unprotected would be reckless if the bikers looped back. This was the tactical dilemma she dreaded. A moment later, Carla spoke to the 911 operator, voice trembling. Yes, we think we heard gunshots near County Road 7. Please send help. She paused, then repeated their location. Hurry. As Carla hung up, Mia's phone buzzed. She snatched it up. Shots fired near me. They're pinned at Old Salvagard. The text was from Lester. Another message followed. Need help. They got me cornered. Mia's stomach dropped. She stood motionless, phone in hand, aware that every second wasted could cost Lester his life. She looked at Marge and Carla, searching for a sign of what they wanted her to do. Their faces were etched with fear and indecision. The silence stretched. Then Marge spoke up, voice shaking, but resolute. "Go, Mia. He saved our diner plenty of times with repairs. We can't just let him die out there." Carla nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "We'll hold down the fort. Just come back. Okay?" Mia's heart pounded. This was the choice. Risk leaving the diner vulnerable to save Lester, or stay and gamble that the Reapers might kill him. She clenched her jaw. "Lock up behind me. Call the others. Get them here if trouble comes." She checked her pistol, took a spare magazine from her bag, and steeled herself. With one final nod from Marge, Mia raced out into the desert night, determined to rescue Lester, and if necessary, face the Steel Reapers head-on. Mia maneuvered her truck onto the highway headlights, slicing through the darkness. She debated taking a smaller vehicle. Speed and stealth might be preferable, but her only immediate option was the 18-wheeler. At least it was large enough to provide cover if a shootout erupted. She revved the engine and sped west, following Lester's coordinates from the text her mind worded with possibilities. The salvage yard near County Road 7 was a sprawling place filled with rusted car shells and towering piles of scrap, perfect for an ambush. The Reapers could be waiting behind metal heaps, picking off anyone who approached. "But what choice do I have?" she thought, her jaw set. "If they cornered Lester, I'm the only backup he's got." Occasionally, the faint glow of headlights appeared in her mirrors, other trucks or cars. Mia wondered if any were locals responding to the group chat. She couldn't risk waiting for them. Every second mattered. She double-checked her phone. No new messages from Lester. She tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. As she neared the turnoff for the salvage yard, her pulse skyrocketed. Even at night, the yard was hard to miss. Twisted car frames stacked like a grim cityscape in the desert. Mia flipped off her headlights a 100 yards out, relying on moonlight and her memory of the layout. The last time she'd passed this area, she recalled a narrow entrance with a chain-link fence and a battered "no trespassing" sign. Sure enough, she spotted the fence in her truck's high beams just before cutting them. Pulling off the main road, she parked the rig in the Shadow's engine idling. She switched off the lights, grabbed her phone, and hopped down from the cab's sidearm at the ready. The night air was silent, except for the distant hiss of wind over scrap metal. Cautiously, she approached the fence on foot, scanning for movement. The gate stood ajar, the lock twisted off. Inside the yard stretched in a labyrinth of rusted vehicles. Gunshots were heard, she reminded herself. Where are they now? Fear noted at her. What if she was too late? A faint glow appeared from deeper within the yard. Flashlights, or possibly bike headlights. She crouched behind a stack of old tires, peering around. Movement flickered. She heard a muffled voice shout something unintelligible, followed by a clang of metal. Her senses honed in on the direction. Clinging to the shadows, Mia made her way between rusted car husks and shattered windshields. The yard smelled of oil and decay, a graveyard of metal. Every so often, she paused hard, hammering, listening for footsteps or the whine of a motorcycle engine. Then she saw them. Two bikers crouched behind a derelict pickup, guns drawn. They were focused on something ahead, occasionally exchanging words she couldn't make out. Mia's pulse thundered. If Lester was pinned down in that direction, he was likely in serious trouble. I have to draw them away, or take them out quietly. She weighed her options. A direct shootout risked hitting Lester if he was caught in the crossfire. A stealthy approach might be best. Drawing on her old training, Mia kept low, circling around a stack of crushed sedans. The wind rustled, providing small cover noises. She flicked the safety off her pistol. Stealth neutralized quickly. Memories of past operations surged, but she pushed them down, focusing on the present. She wasn't a soldier under orders, just a friend trying to save another friend. As she neared the biker's flank, she could hear them more clearly. "You see him move," one hissed. "No, he's pinned under that forklift. Soon as he shows his head, we light him up." Mia felt a surge of relief. Lester was alive. Pinned, but alive. "Hold on," she thought, adrenaline surging. "I'm coming." Mia crept closer, mindful of loose gravel under her boots. She settled behind the half-collapsed remains of an old station wagon, peering over the hood. From this vantage, she saw Lester huddled behind a rusted forklift about 20 yards away, apparently trying to stay out of the biker's line of fire. One of the forklift's tires had been shot out, oil pulled beneath it. The two reapers crouched behind the pickup weapons, aimed in Lester's direction. "Just two that I can see," Mia noted, "but there could be more." She scanned the area quickly, glimpsing movement farther off, possibly another reaper, patrolling or circling around. She had to act fast. Her mind snapped into the old special ops approach. Eliminate immediate threats. Maintain cover. Protect the ally. The forklift's metal frame shielded Lester for now, but if he tried to make a run for it, he'd be exposed. The bikers were content to wait him out. Mia steeled herself, then sprang into action. She fired 2 quick shots into the dirt near the bikers, the muzzle flash flaring in the dark. "Drop your weapons," she yelled, voice echoing among the metal heaps. "Now!" The bikers jolted, turning their heads in confusion. One swore under his breath. They ducked lower behind the pickup, returning fire with a hail of bullets that pinged off metal scraps. Mia flattened herself against the station wagon's hood, heart-thudding. She'd hoped they might surrender, or at least pause. No such luck. These reapers were spoiling for a fight. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted, and the acrid smell of gunpowder mingled with rust. Mia kept her head down, waiting for a lull in their shots. Suddenly, a throbbing engine noise revved up. Someone was starting a motorcycle deeper in the yard. They might try to flank me, she realized. She risked a glance over the hood. The two bikers had shifted their aim from Lester's forklift to her position. Good, she thought grimly. They're not focused on Lester. She motioned wildly for him to move if he could. She wasn't sure if he saw her, but she hoped so. With careful precision, Mia snapped off another shot, aiming at one biker's shoulder. The shot rang true, and she heard a startled cry of pain. The second biker let out a curse and unleashed another barrage toward Mia's cover. She ducked behind the wagon, adrenaline coursing through her veins. One possibly wounded, the other still firing. A sharp crack from the forklift's direction told her Lester was armed. He must have gotten off a shot of his own. She dared a peek and saw the uninjured biker pivot to return fire. This gave Mia an opening. She leaned around the station wagon, aimed carefully at the tire of the pickup truck they were using as cover, and fired twice. The tire blew the truck sagging. The unexpected movement forced the bikers to scramble. "Back off, or the next shot goes through your skulls." Mia shouted, voice carrying a note of lethal conviction she rarely used. In that moment, she was more Delta Force than civilian driver, direct, unyielding, and utterly serious. It seemed to rattle them. The wounded biker clutched his shoulder, blood seeping through his vest. The other hesitated. "Who the hell are you?" he hollered, fear edging his words. Mia didn't answer. She advanced carefully, keeping her pistol trained. A flicker of movement to her left made her freeze. A third biker creeping from behind a stack of crushed cars. He raised his hand and gun, trying to line up a shot on Mia. She dropped to one knee, firing first. Her bullet caught him in the leg, and he stumbled with a scream weapon clattering to the ground. Suddenly, she heard Lester shout, "Mia, watch out!" She whirled to find the second original biker charging her with a knife, eyes wild. She had a split second to react. Her gun was out of position to fire without risking a slash to her arm. Instinct kicked in. She pivoted stepping his lunge and rammed the butt of her pistol into his temple. He collapsed, knife skittering across the dirt. Panting, Mia scanned the chaotic scene. 3 bikers down, 2 wounded, 1 unconscious. She had no idea how many more might be lurking, but a brief silence enveloped them. She risked calling out, "Lester, you okay?" "Yeah," came a shaky reply from behind the forklift. "Thanks to you." Relief flared in her chest. For the moment they'd gained the upper hand. But the night wasn't over, and the Reapers might still have reinforcements nearby. Mia kept her weapon trained on the trio of downed bikers, scanning the perimeter with rapid sweeps. One man lay groaning, clutching a leg wound. Another held a bleeding shoulder. The third was out cold from her pistol strike. The yard's darkness cloaked potential threats, leaving her nerves on a razor's edge. "Lester," she called quietly. "Can you move?" A moment later, the mechanic emerged from behind the forklift, sweaty and pale, but uninjured. He held a small revolver in a trembling grip. "I'm all right," he managed, nodding in gratitude at Mia. "They pinned me the minute I followed them in here." Mia gestured for him to keep watch. Then she inched closer to the wounded bikers, retrieving their discarded firearms. She tossed each gun out of their reach, stepping gingerly around the unconscious man. The stench of rust fuel and blood assaulted her senses, but she forced herself to remain steady. "We're calling an ambulance," she announced tersely, "and the sheriff." She didn't want to leave them to bleed out, but she had zero sympathy for their predicament. They'd been the aggressors. "Lester, can you call 911? He patted his pockets, finding his phone. "Yeah, if I get a signal." He moved off to one side, trying to dial. Meanwhile, the biker with the shoulder wound glared at Mia, eyes filled with hate. You're dead," he spat, struggling to form words. "Hawk will end you for this." Mia's stomach tightened. She'd heard that name before. Hawk, the local Reaper, later rumored to be ruthless. She kept her face impassive. "Tell Hawk I'm not afraid," she said coldly. "Better they think I'm fearless," she reasoned, than sense any hesitancy. A sudden roar of an engine echoed deeper in the salvage yard, sending a bolt of alarm through Hero. Mia dropped to a crouch, aiming toward the noise. Lester stiffened, raising his revolver. The wounded bikers looked uncertain, as if they too weren't sure who was approaching. Then a single motorcycle appeared, weaving around piles of wreckage. The headlight blazed, partially blinding Mia. She shielded her eyes, cursing under her breath. Whoever rode that bike had enough skill to navigate the treacherous terrain at speed. "Stay back!" Mia yelled. But the figure kept coming, engine revving. She fired a warning shot into the air. At once the rider peeled off sharply, headlight disappearing behind a towering mound of crushed cars. Could be a feint, Mia realized. They might have tried to flank us again. Panting, she motioned Lester to find cover. He ducked behind an abandoned SUV, phone still in hand. She could see him murmuring into it, likely with the emergency operator. The tension crackled. For a moment, everything went deadly quiet. The yard resembling a battleground frozen in time. Then the motorcycle reappeared on the opposite side of the clearing, still partially shielded by wrecked vehicles. This time the rider dismounted, stepping forward on foot with a rifle in hand. Mia's heart hammered. A rifle could punch through her flimsy cover with ease. "Hey, boss. Sorry," the leg-wounded biker muttered, as if recognizing the newcomer. Mia felt a chill. Hawk might be here in person. The figure advanced slowly, rifle pointed at Mia's general direction. She shifted position, trying to find a better angle. The gloom made it hard to see the rider's face, but the silhouette was tall, muscular. I see you took out some of my men, came a voice deep-edged with menacing calm. That's bold. Mia gritted her teeth. They ambushed a friend of mine. Had to defend him. She slid a look at Lester, who pressed himself tighter against the SUV. If I can keep Hawk talking, maybe Lester can get the cops here. Hawk let out a low chuckle. I don't know who you are, lady, but you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Mia steadied her pistol, adrenaline blazing in her veins. She sized up the dark silhouette of Hawk, almost certainly the same figure the other bikers had spoken of. He moved with lethal confidence, rifle angled at chest level. In a standoff like this, a single misstep could cost lives. You going to stand there threatening me? Mia called out, keeping her tone cold. Or are we talking about a truce? Hawk chuckled, a sinister sound that echoed through the twisted metal heaps. Truce. You crippled 3 of my men. Lady, ain't no truce coming. She braced herself, scanning the yard for anything to exploit. An overturned forklift, a stack of tires, or a gap between rusted chassis. She needed cover from that rifle. They fired first, she countered. I gave them a chance to surrender. A low from the wounded biker on the ground underscored her words, but it didn't seem to sway Hawk. He advanced another step, boots crunching on gravel. At this distance, if he opened fire, Mia would have only a split second to dodge behind cover. Lester remained pinned, phone to his ear, likely still trying to keep the dispatcher updated. Sirens in the distance would be their only salvation if the Reaper showed up in larger numbers. Let's not do this. Mia tried again, though she doubted words alone would diffuse the situation. We can walk away. No one else gets hurt. Hawk's posture shifted, as if he sized her up anew. You're no ordinary trucker, he mused. You got moves, like you've seen action before. Army Marines. The question jolted her, but she kept her expression neutral. Used to be. Doesn't matter which branch. His grin widened, visible now that he'd stepped closer to a faint patch of moonlight. She could make out rough features, scars along one side of his face, and cold, calculating eyes. Interesting, he said softly. I like a challenge, but you're on the wrong side. This turf belongs to the Steel Reapers. Mia tightened her grip on the pistol. This turf belongs to decent folk who just want to live in peace. Your intimidation ends tonight, or you'll have to go through me. Hawk gave a small, mocking bow. So be it. With lightning speed, he raised his rifle, the barrel gleaming in the pale light. Mia dove behind a stack of tires as a thunderous shot split the night. A shower of rubber shards exploded around her. She landed hard, pain jolting her shoulder. Gritting her teeth, she scrambled to a crouch. Another shot rang out, ricocheting off metal scraps. He's firing to pin me down, she realized. From behind the SUV, Lester popped up and fired his revolver, though his shot went wide. Hawk swung the rifle in Lester's direction, unleashing a burst that shattered the SUV's windshield. Lester yelped, ducking. Mia took the chance to circle around the tire stack, aiming carefully. Her breath shook, but training overrode panic. She squeezed the trigger, firing 3 shots toward Hawk's silhouette. Sparks lit the air as bullets struck scrap metal. Hawk darted behind a half-crushed sedan, returning fire in short, controlled bursts. His movements were fluid. He clearly knew what he was doing. A bullet whizzed past Mia's ear, her heart pounding. He's trying to flank us, she thought, noticing how Hawk angled to cut off their retreat. She motioned frantically for Lester to move away from the SUV. They had to reposition before Hawk got a clear line of sight. Hawk's voice carried over the gunfire. You can't hide forever. I got reinforcements on the way. You'll be outnumbered in minutes. The arrogance in his tone sent a flare of anger through Mia. They didn't have minutes to spare. She locked eyes with Lester, who was crouched behind the SUV's front wheel. He mouthed, "Cops are coming." But how soon was soon a minute 5? They might not last that long if Hawk's backup arrived first. Mia inhaled sharply, no choice but to neutralize him now. She prepared to circle around for a flank, steeling herself for a lethal confrontation that could define the fate of Buckaroos and her own future. Using the twisted terrain of rusted cars as a makeshift maze, Mia maneuvered in a wide arc, hoping to catch Hawk from an unexpected angle. The wind carried the reek of burnt rubber and oil, the aftertaste of gunfire lingering in the air. Her breath came in sharp bursts, heart pounding with the knowledge that one wrong step could bring her into Hawk's crosshairs. She crept around the rear of a shattered minivan, ears straining for Hawk's footsteps. Each scuff and crunch of gravel made her tense. She glimpsed Lester, hunkered low behind the SUV, reloading his revolver with trembling fingers. At least, he was still alive. The downed bikers were out of the fight, though their groans punctuated the darkness. Suddenly, Hawk's voice rang out. "I admire your spirit, soldier girl, but you're not walking away from this." The menacing echo seemed to come from ahead, yet shadows distorted his exact position. Mia silently cursed. Hawk was canny. He might be using misdirection to draw her in. An engine roared in the distance, jolting her attention. Another motorcycle. Possibly more Reapers. She tightened her hold on her pistol. If they arrive before the sheriff, we're done for. She pushed forward carefully, weaving through rusted fenders and twisted metal beams. A flash of motion on her right. Mia dropped to a knee, pivoting. Hawk emerged from behind the sedan, rifle raised. His eyes widened. Clearly, he hadn't expected her to close in so fast. They fired almost simultaneously, muzzle flashes lighting the yard. A searing pain tore across Mia's ribs, forcing a gasp. She fired twice, aiming center mass. Hawk jerked, stumbling back, but his vest must have absorbed most of the impact. He let out a growl, adjusting his aim. Mia flung herself down as a bullet whined overhead. Scrambling behind the minivan, she pressed a hand to her side. Her palm came away wet, grazed, but bleeding. The pain blurred her vision momentarily. Hawk's boots crunched on gravel, closing in. She heard him mutter a curse, probably from the bruising impact of her shots. Mia fought the urge to cry out, focusing on her training. Breathe through the pain. Move or die. She chambered another round, wincing at the effort. At that moment, Lester shouted from behind the SUV, drawing Hawk's attention. The biker leader twisted, unleashing a burst of rifle fire that sent sparks dancing. Mia seized the distraction. She rolled out from behind the minivan, steadied her aim, and squeezed the trigger. Pop, pop, pop. 3 shots in rapid succession. Hawk managed to dodge sideways, 2 bullets pinging off metal. The third clipped his upper arm. He grunted expression, twisting in rage. He returned fire, forcing Mia to duck again. The yard reverberated with rapid cracks of gunfire, a lethal dance of aggression and evasive maneuvers. Mia's side throbbed, and her vision flickered. Stay focused. She willed herself to remain calm, pushing past the pain. If Hawk realized she was injured, he'd press harder. She wiped sweat from her brow, noticing her hand shook faintly. Another wave of gunshots came from Hawk's rifle. He's got more ammo than me, she realized. She had maybe a half magazine left. A faint flicker of light in the distance caught her eye. Blue and red. Law enforcement. The sirens followed, still distant but growing. Hope sparked in her chest. If the cops arrived soon, maybe they'd corner Hawk. He must have noticed as well, cursing under his breath. His rifle fell silent. Mia heard him dart behind the sedan, possibly searching for a new vantage or planning to escape. She called out, voice, "It's over, Hawk! Reinforcements are coming! Drop the weapon!" No reply. Instead, she heard metal scraping a trunk lid opening or something shifting. He might be rummaging for more ammo or a different weapon. She couldn't let him regroup, summoning her last reserves of energy. Mia pressed a hand against her bleeding side, forcing herself upright. Her steps wobbled, but she pushed forward, rounding the sedan's trunk. Sure enough, Hawk knelt behind it, reloading his rifle from a bag of ammunition. Blood stained his sleeve. He looked up, eyes blazing with fury. For a heartbeat, time slowed. Mia's pistol was raised, but so was his rifle. They hovered in a deadly standoff, each capable of killing the other. Who pulls the trigger first? Beads of sweat rolled down Mia's face, stinging her eyes. Hawk's rifle barrel glinted with fresh rounds in the magazine. Her pistol felt like an extension of her arm. Every muscle coiled to fire. The sirens grew louder, yet still too far for immediate rescue. A single tense breath passed. Then, in a lightning move, Hawk lunged to the side, using the car's trunk lid as partial cover. Mia fired her bullet, pinging off metal. He returned fire, the shot ripping through the sedan's rear window in a spray of shattered glass. Shards rained down, slicing the air between them. Mia inhaled sharply, forcing herself to stand firm. Her side burned fiercely. "Focus, aim, squeeze." She fired twice more, walking her shots to corner him. One clipped his leg, drawing a snarl of pain. He staggered, dropping to a knee behind the sedan's wheel well. The rifle clanged against the metal, momentarily out of his grasp. A flash of triumph sparked in Mia. He was vulnerable. She advanced carefully, though each step felt like hot knives twisting in her torso. Don't let him recover. She reached the edge of the sedan, hard hammering, and leaned over the hood to get a clearer line of sight. Suddenly, Hawk erupted upward, face twisted in a grimace. He had a handgun now snatched from inside the car's trunk. He fired wildly, forcing Mia to duck. A bullet grazed her shoulder, tearing fabric, drawing blood. She bit back a cry, returning fire with her last few rounds. The exchange was brutal and close quarters. Hawk managed to dodge the worst of it, though his movements were hobbled by his leg wound. Mia's final bullet struck his side. He bellowed, dropping to one hand, pistol slipping from his grasp. Smoke and the stench of gunpowder hung thick in the air. Gasping, Mia realized her magazine was empty. She glanced down at her side from her shab and hammered the slide. No more rounds. The only spare magazine lay in her go bag back in the truck. She cursed under her breath, flicking her gaze back to Hawk. He knelt there, panting, blood staining his clothes. His eyes flashed with hatred. She expected him to concede, but instead he lunged forward, swinging a metal crowbar he must have grabbed from the trunk. Instinct drove her to sidestep, but her injury slowed her. The crowbar grazed her forearm, sending a jolt of pain up her arm. She stumbled, losing her footing on loose gravel, crashing onto her injured side. Agony roared through her. Hawk loomed over, crowbar raised for a finishing blow, blood trickling from multiple wounds. "This is for my crew. You," he snarled, voice cracking. Mia had only one recourse, her knife. She yanked it from a sheath tucked in her boot. As Hawk swung the crowbar downward, she rolled, slashing upward at his arm. A scream tore from him as the crowbar clanged to the ground. He staggered back, clutching a deep gash. She rose on unsteady feet, knife trembling in her grip, vision swimming from pain. Hawk dropped to one knee, cursing viciously. His free hand fumbled for the handgun on the ground. Mia reacted in a flash, kicking it away. Sirens blared closer, red and blue lights now flickering against twisted metal. The cavalry was finally here. Hawk glared up at Mia, eyes burning with rage and disbelief. He coughed blood, flecking his lips. You're done, he spat, breath ragged. Reapers, we'll tear this county apart. Mia swallowed knife still raised. Not while I'm standing. The retort sounded hollow in her own ears, but she held firm, ready to end him if he reached for another weapon. Over the den of sirens, she heard the squeal of tires and the barked orders of arriving deputies. The final showdown had ended in blood, but Mia had survived, and Hawk was down. Flashing lights strobed across the salvage yard as a half-dozen patrol cars skidded to a stop near the entrance. Deputies poured out guns, drawn shouting commands. Mia let the knife slip from her grip, raising shaky hands to show she wasn't a threat. Finally, she thought relief flooding her limbs like a collapsing wave. Deputy Russell was among the first to reach her eyes wide at the carnage. Hawk lay slumped nearby, bleeding from multiple wounds. The other Reapers, one unconscious too, with bullet injuries, still sprawled across the yard. Lester emerged from his cover, hands up, calling for a medic. Within moments, the yard was filled with the crackle of police radios, the beam of flashlights, and the urgent voices of EMTs. Mia sagged against the rusted sedan, exhaustion roaring through her body. Her side felt like it was on fire, and she noted blood staining her jacket sleeve. Russell approached, carefully scanning the scene. "Holy Mia, are you okay? We tried to get here faster." "I'll live," she managed, forcing a tight-lipped smile. "Get Hawk under his control. He's armed and dangerous." She gestured to the downed biker leader. Russell nodded sharply. He and another deputy moved to secure Hawk, kicking away the fallen handgun and radioing for paramedics. Hawk sneered at them, but he couldn't put up much resistance in his wounded state. Two EMTs rushed to Mia's side, urging her to lie down on a makeshift stretcher they placed on the gravel. She winced as they cut away part of her shirt to assess the bullet graze across her ribs. "It's not a through and through," one EMT murmured. "Just a deep laceration, but you'll need stitches." Mia hissed in pain, acknowledging the other smaller injuries. "What about him?" she asked, nodding toward Lester. He stood a few yards away, arms crossed over his chest, as if to calm himself. "He's fine," the other EMT said. "Just some bruises and cuts." The tension in their voice signaled they had more serious patients to handle. Mia felt a pang of empathy for the wounded bikers, twisted as they were by criminal acts. Nobody wanted a firefight to end in bloody injuries, but they'd chosen this path. As paramedics tended to her side with gauze and disinfectant, Mia's mind raced. What now? Even with Hawk and several Reapers captured, the gang's hold on the region might not dissolve overnight. But their leader downfall was a significant blow, one that could unravel their control if law enforcement pressed hard enough. Russell came over, voice hushed. "We've got your statements from earlier. With these arrests, we might finally have enough to nail the Steel Reapers for racketeering and attempted murder." He paused, eyes drifting to the dried blood on Mia's forearm. "You were incredible out there. I've never seen someone handle a situation like that." Mia forced a self-conscious chuckle, ignoring the jab of pain in her ribs. "I guess I had some training. Army years ago, that's all." He nodded slowly, suspecting there was more to it. "The way you moved. Anyway, I won't cry." He offered a grim smile. "You saved Lester's life and maybe a lot of others. That's what matters." Nearby, Hawk groaned as deputies hauled him onto a stretcher. Before they carried him away, his gaze locked on Mia, hatred etched in every line of his face. "You haven't won, soldier girl," he rasped. "Steel Reapers bigger than just me." She met his gaze unflinchingly. "Let them come," she said, voice calm. "We'll be ready." With that, paramedics carried him off, while others loaded the wounded bikers into ambulances. The chaotic blur of sirens, lights, and medical triage continued, but the immediate threat had passed. Maya exhaled a shaky breath, letting the adrenaline drain away. It's done. After an hour of police statements, field dressings, and endless questions, Mia finally found herself being transported to the local hospital in the back of an ambulance. Her injuries weren't life-threatening, but protocol demanded she get more comprehensive care than the on-site medics could provide. A throbbing headache set in, likely from dehydration and stress. The hospital in Sunfall Creek was modest, a single-story building with a small ER. The paramedics wheeled Mia inside, where a tired-looking doctor began cleaning and stitching her wounds. She lay on an examination bed, overhead fluorescent lights glaring harshly down. Between pulses of pain, her thoughts drifted to Buckaroo's last stand. She pictured Marge and Carla anxiously awaiting news. Are they safe? Did any more Reapers show up at the diner? She consoled herself that the group chat was active, and the sheriff's department, now emboldened with evidence, would likely dispatch additional patrols. The fight at the salvage yard had changed the equation. A direct assault on law enforcement usually galvanized local agencies into real action. "Ma'am?" The doctor's voice cut through her reverie. He was middle-aged with kind eyes. "You're going to be fine. The bullet grazed your ribs, and you have some superficial shrapnel in your shoulder. It'll hurt for a while, but no lasting damage." He paused, giving her a critical once-over. "You're lucky. A few inches deeper, and we'd be having a different conversation." Mia mustered a wry smile. "I've had practice being lucky." She glanced at the clock on the wall. Nearly 400 a.m. Dawn was only a couple of hours away. Exhaustion weighed on her eyelids, and the hospital bed felt simultaneously uncomfortable and welcoming. A knock at the partially open door revealed Deputy Russell, looking equally spent. She nodded for him to come in. The doctor bowed out, leaving them with a semblance of privacy. "How are you holding up?" Russell asked, pulling a chair beside her arm. "I spoke with the sheriff. We've got Hawk in custody. He's going into surgery for his wounds, but under guard. The other bikers will face charges for attempted murder, assault, and more." Mia breathed a sigh of relief that the arrests were sticking. What it did all out, the rest of the Steel Reapers. They threatened to tear the county apart. Russell ran a hand through his hair. "That remains to be seen, but we have evidence, plus confessions from some members who might flip to reduce charges. The Reapers will be on the back foot without Hawk to lead them, and will coordinate with state and federal agencies if they try to retaliate." She nodded, mind spinning. Maybe at last the threat can be contained. The tension that had coiled in her chest for days began to loosen. "Thanks for everything, Deputy. I know the system can be slow, but this is a good start." He studied her, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "Marge told me how you'd been helping them for days, setting up a watch group reinforcing the diner. Word spreading that you're some kind of hero." Heat rose to her cheeks. She'd never been comfortable with praise for using force, even if it was justified. "Just doing what I had to. People needed help. And if you call me a hero, I might roll my eyes." Russell chuckled softly. "Okay, let's stick to local legend." Then his voice grew somber. "Don't be surprised if state police or even the feds want to chat with you. They'll wonder about your background. Handling 4 armed suspects is no small feat for a civilian." Mia tensed, but kept her tone casual. "Well, I'll tell them what they need to hear. Army training, that's all." Her mind churned with the potential risk of revealing her deeper past. But for now, the immediate crisis was resolved, and the county's attention was on the Reapers, not her personal history. Russell stood, patting her hand gently. "Get some rest. The doc says you'll be here overnight for observation. Then you can head back to Buckaroo's, if you still want to. Mia closed her eyes, fatigue crashing over her. I do. I owe them. And maybe after this, things can finally be peaceful. Sunrise brought a thin beam of golden light through the hospital's small window, rousing Mia from fitful sleep. She felt every ache, her side, her shoulder, the tension in her back. Yet the morning air smelled faintly hopeful, a contrast to the violent chaos of a few hours prior. A nurse entered, checking Mia's vitals and offering pain medication. "You have visitors," she said kindly. "Shall I send them in?" Mia nodded, adjusting her stiff posture against the pillows. Moments later, Marge and Carla stepped in, faces drawn with worry, but lit by relief when they saw her sitting upright. "Oh, Mia," Carla breathed, rushing to the bedside. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "We heard from Lester that you were shot. We've been worried sick." Marge stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed over her apron. "Tough as nails, this one," she said with a tremulous smile. "But are you really okay?" Mia nodded, a lump in her throat. Seeing them safe made the night's injuries worth it. "I'll be fine. Grazes and bruises. The doc wants me to rest for at least a day." "How's the diner?" Carla exhaled in a shaky burst. "We stayed up the rest of the night. A few local ranchers came by with rifles just in case, but no one else showed up. When we got the call that Hawk and his men were arrested, it was like a weight lifted." She grabbed Mia's hand. "We're so grateful." Mia offered a gentle squeeze back, simultaneously touched and embarrassed. "You guys would have done the same for me." Marge scoffed good-naturedly. "Let's not lie. We're not ex-soldiers who can take on half a biker gang." She paused, eyes searching Mia's face. "You saved Lester's life, Mia, and ours in a way. He said it was like something out of a movie the way you fought." Heat rose to Mia's cheeks. She averted her gaze. "I did what had to be done. That's all." Then she cleared her throat. "But I'm worried. Hawk claimed the Reapers are bigger than just him. Do you think we're out of the woods?" Marge and Carla exchanged glances. "Deputy Russell said they'll increase patrols," Marge replied. "And folks around town are banding together more than ever. The Reapers might still try something, but we're not alone anymore." The hint of solidarity bolstered Mia's spirits. The entire community had found a backbone, and that unity combined with law enforcement might just fend off any remaining threats. That's how real change happens, she thought. People standing up for each other. Carla reached into a bag she carried, pulling out a small container. "We brought you some soup from the diner. Probably cold by now, but it's better than hospital food." Touched. Mia accepted it. "You guys didn't have to thank you." She paused, taking a careful breath. "I'll return as soon as I'm discharged. Need to get my truck back too. But maybe a hot shower and a few hours of sleep in a real bed first." Carla smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Take all the time you need. You've earned some rest." Marge placed a hand on Mia's foot. "When you're better, we're throwing a celebratory barbecue behind the diner. The entire town. Our way of saying thanks and reminding everyone we're strong together." Mia's throat tightened at their warmth and gratitude. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. The sense of belonging, of having made a real difference, felt overwhelming. "A barbecue sounds good," she managed, voice rough. "I'd like that." They chatted a bit more, exchanging updates on who had pitched in during the night, watch how the Reapers' hideouts were being raided by the sheriff's department, and the outpouring of relief that swept the county. For the first time in a long while, Mia felt hope blossom. Maybe she had found not just a temporary stopover, but a place worth fighting for. A place that had finally allowed her to be more than a drifting ghost of her past. It was late afternoon when the hospital finally discharged Mia. Though bandaged and stiff, she insisted on walking out under her own power. Deputy Russell offered her a ride back to Buckaroos, which she accepted. Driving her semi in this condition was out of the question. They cruised the winding highway, the sun dipping low and painting the desert in warm oranges and purples. A gentle quiet settled over them. For Mia, the swirl of events in the last 24 hours felt surreal, like stepping out of a war zone into a calmer reality. "You sure you want to head straight back to the diner?" Russell asked as they neared the turnoff. "You could get a room in town, heal up away from potential trouble." Mia shook her head, wincing slightly at the movement. "I need to see everyone. Check on my truck. And truthfully, it feels more like home now than any motel could." He gave a small nod. "Understood. Just don't push yourself too hard. Let folks help you for a change." She gave him a half-smile. "I'll try." The notion of accepting others' help was still foreign to her, but the events of the past days had chipped away her lone wolf defenses. When Russell pulled up at Buckaroos, Mia was met with a scene that made her chest tighten. A handful of neighbors stood outside along with Marge, Carla, and Lester. They greeted her with cautious applause and genuine warmth. Even from the window of the patrol car, she could see the relief on their faces. Lester stepped forward as she climbed out, carefully extending a hand to help her. "You look like hammered nails, but I'm damn glad to see you upright." Mia laughed softly, though the motion tugged at her bandages. "Thanks, Lester, and thanks for holding out until I got there." He grinned sheepishly. "You saved me, Mia. If I can ever repay that, just name it." Deputy Russell lingered for a moment, then gave her a respectful nod. "Take care. We'll have more patrols in the area, and I'll call if we need any more statements." Mia waved goodbye, then turned to face the small crowd. They ushered her inside the diner, still bearing signs of reinforcement. But the tense atmosphere had shifted. The place felt bright, hopeful. A banner hastily taped above the counter read, "Thank you, Maya," in hand-painted letters. Her cheeks warmed. "You didn't have to do all this," Carla blushed. "We know you hate the spotlight, but we wanted to show our appreciation. Word is traveling fast. Most folks around here consider you a hero." Mia shifted uncomfortably, scanning the boarded windows. "I'm just glad no one else got hurt," she demurred. "And it's not over until we're sure the Reapers are done here." Marge placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, gently guiding her to a booth. "For now, rest. We've got sweet tea pie and whatever you need." The older woman's eyes gleamed with gratitude. "You gave us a fighting chance. That's something we'll never forget." Mia allowed herself to be fussed over, settling into a padded booth. Her side ached, but the smell of fresh coffee and homemade pie buoyed her spirits. Looking around, she saw the faces of people she'd come to care about. Lester Paisley from the convenience store, a rancher or two who'd joined the watch group. They all gathered, offering small tokens, a quilt, a jar of local honey, a get-well card scrolled by neighborhood kids. She blinked back emotion. It was the closest thing to a community she'd experienced in years. In the Army, later Delta Force, she had camaraderie, but it was forged in secrecy and danger. This felt gentler, more real, and maybe more vulnerable because of it. Could I stay here? She wondered, the idea both comforting and terrifying. Sipping sweet tea, Mia let the clamor of voices surround her, a lullaby of gratitude and relief. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a future not defined by running from her past. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a place in this dusty corner of the world she'd saved if they'd have her. A few days later, the diner bustled with normal activity again. The boards on the windows came down, replaced by new panes of reinforced glass. Marge joked that the place looked fancier than ever, and Carla teased that they might need to rename the diner the Fort to honor recent events. Law enforcement had ramped up presence across the county, dismantling several known Reaper hangouts. Multiple arrests were made, and those who escaped scattered, leaving fewer signs of organized activity. The local paper ran a headline, "Steel Reapers Routed. A Community Fights Back." During that time, Mia remained at Buckaroo's, gradually healing. She helped around the diner as best she could, though Marge refused to let her lift anything heavier than a coffee pot until her stitches were out. The nights were more peaceful, and even the wind seemed less ominous without the threat of motorcycle engines prowling in the dark. One afternoon, as the sun slanted through the freshly cleaned windows, Mia found a moment to sit with Carla by the counter. They sipped lemonade, the tangy sweetness a refreshing change from the chaos they'd endured. "You should have seen the barbecue last night," Carla murmured, smiling at the memory. "Half the town showed up. We missed you." Mia shrugged. Wasn't feeling up to crowds yet. Truth be told, large gatherings still set her nerves on edge. Something about loud laughter and sudden movements could trigger old instincts, memories of infiltration missions. She was working through it slowly. Carla gave her a compassionate look. "You've done so much for us. I hope you know you're welcome here whether you want to stay or just pass through any time." She paused, fiddling with the hem of her apron. "Speaking of which, have you thought about what's next?" Mia leaned back, feeling the tug of her mending wounds. She'd been grappling with that question daily. The simplest path would be to climb back into her truck and resume life on the open road, hauling cargo and avoiding deeper ties. But the desire to stay to see if she could forge a real home gnawed at her. "Sometimes I think about rolling out tomorrow," she admitted, "and other times I catch myself wanting to settle in. It's weird. I've never been the type to belong anywhere." Carla smiled softly. "People change. Or maybe you just found the right place." The notion lingered as Mia stood to refill her glass. She remembered the gratitude on the ranchers' faces, the baby she'd helped deliver on the roadside, the sense of purpose she felt protecting the diner. Maybe she'd found what she didn't even realize she was searching for. Before Mia could respond, Marge bustled over, wiping her hands on a towel. "Good news, Mia. Lester says your truck's in top shape now. He replaced those old brake lines with premium ones free of charge." Mia nodded. "That's generous. I'll be sure to thank him." A subtle pause followed. Marge and Carla exchanged glances. Finally, Marge placed a hand on Mia's arm. "You're free to do as you wish, dear, but we hope you'll stick around a bit. You know we could use another set of hands here, especially one who's not afraid to handle tough customers if any ever roll in again." Carla's eyes lit up. "We could hire you as our security guard." She giggled. "Or bouncer." A genuine laugh escaped Mia. "I'll think about it," she said, heat rising in her cheeks. Her heart tugged in multiple directions, but the idea of staying felt less impossible than before. Late that evening, Mia took a solitary walk around the perimeter of Buckaroo's Last Stand. The neon sign glowed gently, casting shifting colors across the gravel lot. A warm breeze drifted by, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush. She paused near the spot where she'd once found a Reaper sabotaging her truck, recalling the tension and danger of that night. Now the air felt calm, as if the desert itself had exhaled relief. Reaching her rig, she ran her hand along the freshly repaired brake lines. Lester's handiwork is solid, she thought. The truck had been her shelter, her means of escape, and her companion on countless highways. But now it stood silent, almost waiting for her decision. Will I drive out tomorrow, or is my journey's end here? She climbed into the cab, inhaling the familiar scent of diesel and worn upholstery. The medical supplies she'd stashed in the go bag were half used, her spare ammo spent. No more illusions, she told herself. I'm not just a simple trucker, but maybe I don't have to be a soldier either. Something in between might exist, a new path where she could use her skills without being defined by violence. Digging into a small lockbox under the driver's seat, she withdrew a dog-eared photograph. Herself in uniform standing beside 3 other Delta Force operators, all grinning after a successful mission. The edges of the photo were bent from years of travel. She hadn't looked at it in a long time, but now she traced the faces with her finger. They had parted ways, some retired like her others still on active duty. She wondered if they had found their own versions of home. Mia sat there for a while, letting the desert wind blow through the open window. Memories swirled of foreign battlefields, covert ops, and the unyielding sense of responsibility that came with them. She'd stepped away from that life in search of peace. Instead, she'd found another fight right here in rural America. Yet this time, the fight ended in a sense of community, not perpetual secrecy. She thought of Marge Carla Lester and all the others who had banded together. Their gratitude and friendship had left an indelible mark. The road always beckoned with the promise of freedom. But maybe freedom could also be found in roots. Knowing you're needed and valued. Could that be enough for me? As if in answer, her phone chimed. She flipped it open, seeing a text from Carla. We just made a fresh batch of blueberry pie. Come inside if you want a slice before bed. A simple invitation, yet it conveyed warmth and belonging. She smiled, feeling a rare lightness in her chest. With a gentle sigh, Mia started gathering a few possessions from the cab, some clothes, a toiletry kit, the photo. She left the lockbox locked, storing her sidearm safely. She decided she wouldn't need it for tonight. Easing her injured shoulder, she climbed down from the truck, softly closing the door behind her. As she walked back to the diner's welcoming glow, a sense of resolution settled in. I'll stay for now, see where it leads. Maybe she'd still haul freight occasionally, keeping her commercial license active, but for once, she wanted to try living in one spot, forging real connections, facing troubles alongside people she cared about. She stepped inside, greeted by the comforting hum of the overhead lights and the soft bustle in the kitchen. Carla smiled from behind the counter, cutting generous slices of pie. Marge wiped a table clean, glancing up to give Mia a warm nod. This was the calm after the storm, a place that knew her worth without demanding her secrets. In that moment, Mia realized she had at last found her new mission, a quieter one, steeped in everyday life and genuine bonds. The Outlaws had ambushed a female truck driver, never suspecting she was a trained Delta Force operative. But now she was so much more than that, a trusted friend, a local hero, and perhaps a permanent part of this desert community she had helped save. When the dust finally settled, Mia had not only defended her fellow Americans, she'd reclaimed something priceless: peace and pride for a hard-working, resilient community. This dramatic showdown wasn't just about outlaws versus heroes. It was about the timeless values that built this country: courage, loyalty, and standing tall when danger knocks. Mia's bravery reminded us that true heroes often wear blue jeans, drive 18-wheelers, and sip their coffee black at roadside diners. Buckaroo's last stand became more than a truck stop. It became a symbol of everyday American bravery, a beacon of hope along the open highways. Friends, as we close this thrilling chapter, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Did Mia's courage remind you of your favorite classic Western heroes? What would you have done in her boots? Leave your comments, and let's keep this conversation rolling. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got plenty more action-packed, inspiring stories coming your way. After all, America's highways will always need guardians.